What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 6 of Chapter 146 Re-entering the Country of War advertisement. The founding of the country of Wano was a policy promulgated by Swain, but when he founded the country, he did not allow everyone to enter. Just like a visa when traveling abroad, you must have a pass to enter Wano country. This is also a headache for Absalom. He is sure that Kaido's body must be in Wano country because he has inquired about Beehive Island and the Golden City. Brother Weiss, let's go to Wano country now, Absalom suggested. The country of Wano, Beehive Island and Golden City were merged together by Swain, and they are not very far apart. Due to the geographical location of Wano country, Swain used many people to build a overpass to facilitate people from both sides, normal traffic. Swain said calmly, "Don't worry, I don't have the pass now." "What?" Absalom asked anxiously, faintly angry. "Are you kidding me?" "I'm really not kidding you. It's useless to carry the pass with me." "Okay, you can go back and get it now. Don't be anxious, we still have something important to do now," Swainu said. Absalom looked in the direction of Swainu's mouth. There were more than a dozen people gathered around, seemingly looking at something. Absalom saw Swain walking over on his own. Although he was angry, he still followed closely. "I saw more than a dozen people sitting around watching a movie. What was being screened was King Ming Saves the Kingdom of Wan, which was filmed by Swain himself as the screenwriter and Roland as the director. The projection bug also has the ability to shoot movies and has the ability to store movies, but it cannot edit and needs to be performed in one go. Therefore, it is a great test for the actor's ability. The female protagonist of this movie is a local beauty, and the male protagonist will definitely not be able to play the role himself and will be replaced by other actors." "Just to see these?" Absalom asked in disbelief. He thought Swain was a bit too boring, and he might as well go to a famous PR Street Youth's house to have fun in this time. "Although the movie is a bit strange, I got used to it after seeing all kinds of novel things on Beehive Island." Swain nodded. "You have to think about what the movie reveals." "How'd I know?" Absalom suddenly said. "Wait. You mean Swain? King Ming likes beauties, so we should send him some beauties, and everything will be solved." Swain rolled his eyes at him, feeling quite speechless. "What I mean is that movies will definitely develop in the future. Isn't this an obvious business opportunity?" Absalom looked at Swain expectantly, as if he wanted to confirm whether the answer was correct, but the other party turned around and left. "Let's go and find the pass." Absalom was delighted when he heard this and hurriedly followed. The overpass is very long and steep. Absalom walked on it, just like climbing a mountain. He was afraid of heights, but he also loved to look down. Still screaming. A typical foodie and fun-loving person. Advertisement. It caused people in front of me to look back from time to time, which caused quite a bit of misunderstanding. "What on earth are we going to Wano country for?" Swain asked. "It's a secret, but it will definitely make you a lot of money. Can my brother still lie to you?" Swain nodded and agreed. At first, he thought Absalom came here just for the shadow of Kaido and his cadres. Who knows, Absalom almost didn't ask any of these questions, he was just asking where Kaido's daughter Yamato was. This made Swain a little puzzled. Yamato and Mariah didn't seem to have any friendship. Could it be that Mariah fell in love with her? Does not seem to be true either. But there is one thing. His arrival has indeed changed many things, and the butterfly effect has begun, just like Moria looking for Yamato. After passing the natural danger of the overpass, you have completely entered the country of Wano. The pass in Swain's hand was 9 miles. As soon as he arrived here, Swain felt a big change. Most of the originally dense forests have been cut down to make way for large-scale construction projects, leaving places that should have been uninhabited now filled with houses. The houses are connected with each other, and it has begun to take on the shape of a village. From time to time, the sound of children playing can be heard from a distance, creating a happy scene. It was Absalom's first time to come to the country of Wano. Even after the country was founded, it was difficult for him to enter without a pass, so his initial impression was still at the level of war, hunger, and poverty. Seeing his dumbfounded look, Swain couldn't help but feel secretly proud. One thing he was better than Kaido was that he was willing to put these resources into full use rather than exploit them. Not long after walking forward, someone greeted them. An old man with half-white hair and a stooped figure asked, "Are you two here for business or for fun?" Although he looks old, the old man speaks in a loud voice. "We are here to find someone." "I'm here for fun," Swain interrupted Absalom. Swain was afraid that he would accidentally reveal Yamato. Most people in Wano did not know who Yamato was, but as long as he mentioned that he was the son of Kaido, it would really offend the public. They have been oppressed for so many years, and Kaido has long filled these people with hatred. The old man turned his eyes and said, "Okay, I'll lead the way for you two and introduce you to the customs and attractions along the way." When Swain saw the old man's appearance, he secretly thought something bad. He knew in his heart that someone who could be a tour guide had the responsibility not only of introducing people, but also as a spy. "I'm afraid they will be taken to the military control center later and tortured to extract confessions." Absalom was too big-hearted to realize this. He only regarded him as an introducer and listened happily to the interesting things the old man said. Swain had no choice but to follow him and wait until necessary to hint at his identity. After all, Swain still wanted to know more about Moria. If he could use it for himself, that would be the icing on the cake. Chapter 147 Who? Advertisement on the way. Swain made a gesture to Absalom and wanted to take him away together. However, the other party didn't seem to understand what he meant, and there was some confusion in his eyes. Swain felt helpless for this muggle. He had no choice but to get closer and say, "We have to leave this old man." Absalom asked, "Why? This road leads to the military command center." What? Absalom was secretly surprised. The military administration is an armed force whose members are mainly composed of local Ronin and are under the command of Kinemon. The original title of the 9 heroes of Chisao was also changed to 9 gates by Swain. The reason is very simple, just to prevent these people from missing Kazuki Oden and achieving another recovery. After Absalom heard about the military management office, his eyes gradually became cold. The thought of murder lingered in his mind. Swain naturally felt the emotional changes in him and quickly squeezed his shoulders. The pain caused the other party to grimace and look at Swain in confusion. "Don't do it. Do you want to cause more trouble?" "What's the impact?" The ruling system was formulated by Swain. He knew better and then said, "If they can't catch you, they will seal off Jiuli, and then all outsiders will be arrested and questioned. With Absalom's IQ, someone will definitely find out. He doesn't know this yet, or he is more aware of his IQ." Seeing that he still didn't agree, Swain tightened his hand a little more. The pain caused Absalom to use his ability to become invisible, and then he got rid of Swain's control. When the old man saw that he was about to arrive at the military control center, his rickety back began to straighten up. Looking back, I was a little dumbfounded. After Swain defeated Kaido, he released Yamato, and the sea stone around his neck was untied, making him a truly free body. It's just that she didn't seem to have any thoughts on joining him. Swain didn't force anything, and the partners who came in halfway were like strangers. Absalom suddenly appeared and said, "Brother, where should we find someone now?" "Let's go to Onigashima." "Onigashima, isn't it already destroyed?" Swain smiled mysteriously and did not answer his question. "Let's go." Ghost Island was indeed completely destroyed during the battle between Swain and Kaido. The founding businessmen took a fancy to this piece of wasteland and specially bought it to develop it. They built a bronze statue of Swain in the center of the island and placed it there. The name of the island was also changed to New Century. New Century Island. I don't know what technology is used to make it still suspended in the air. "How amazing!" Absalom exclaimed. Swain was also a little surprised. What could make the island float was either technology or fruit ability. Obviously this is the former. Advertisement. Thinking of this, Swain's heart began to itch again. When will we bring Vegapunk over? That guy is very powerful. Initially, it was to take care of the feelings of his crew member Jody, but at the same time, the scientist would always be hit. But then I thought about it, the impact would be less than his desire for new technology. Isn't this the case for all scientists? As soon as the two stepped onto the island, they could feel that the temperature was significantly lower than outside. A white film can be vaguely seen on the periphery of the island, and cold air can continuously emerge from under the film. This should be the refrigeration device. Swain was a bit like a country bumpkin entering the city, showing curiosity everywhere. After walking for a while, Swain couldn't help but sigh that this island is so ingenious. New Century Island was expanded on the original basis, and the perimeter of the island began to be extended. Then several Optimus pillars were built, like stacked blocks, and a city was built in the pillars. It can probably be seen as 2 islands stacked up, but there are some gaps in the middle. This also understands why refrigeration devices are used above the islands. Can the 2 islands not be hot? But it can be seen from this that the financial resources behind Panchea Island are strong. But Swain didn't know anything about it. Deceive the subordinates and hide the superiors. Swain was a little dissatisfied. It seemed that someone dared to reach into his pocket just after he took root as the 4 emperors. Swain sneered secretly. "Let you continue to dance around for a few days. Walking further inside, you can see a lot of people. It's as lively as a market, even more prosperous than in Jiuli town. The people I saw the most were merchants, shuttling between the various shops." While Swain was still observing, a cold look made him suddenly cautious. Strong. Very strong, at least on the same level as Kaido. The sights and sounds poured out like a tide, covering half of the island. Absalom felt the change in Swain and asked, "What happened?" Swain searched for a while to no avail, and said with an ugly face, "You didn't feel a breath?" "What breath?" "Oh, when you put it like that, I really feel that the air conditioning is a bit cold." Absalom shivered from the cold and rubbed his arms. No. Swain had some bad premonitions in his heart. This penetrating aura is probably aimed at him. It is even said that he is very good at hiding his aura. Just 2 or 3 seconds after feeling the breath, Swain could no longer search for the color. Who is it? Swain quickly ran through the list of people he had offended in his mind. It was impossible for the 5 elders to do so, because stealth and taking risks were not their style. Other 4 emperors, Whitebeards and Redheads were excluded because there was no conflict of interest. Auntie? It's even more impossible. There are no desserts here that can make him crazy. Etc. It seems that my thinking direction is wrong. They are not the only powerful people in this sea. Those are the only people who escaped from Impel Down City. But, who will it be? How could he target him, not to mention that his face is not his true appearance? Chapter 148 Monster Advertisement. Seeing Swain's absent-minded look, Absalom asked, "What are you thinking about?" "It's nothing, I was a little distracted just now." Everyone has some secrets, and Absalom knew that Swain didn't want to tell them. It's like he was sent by Moria to kidnap Yamato. They wandered around like this all morning and found no clues. Swain was a little confused. Why did that aura only appear once? Although it is said that soldiers will stop him and water will cover him, it is not his character to wait for others to be attacked in the dark. He decided to give up on Moria first, found a way to send Absalom away, and agreed with him on the place to meet next. The Ghost Island was not big, but at Swain's speed, he left the island in less than 10 minutes. At the same time, there was a dark red figure following Swain quietly. Like a ghost, no one noticed him. However, the latter separated the distance very far, just enough to block the range of seeing and hearing. It can be said that when Swain released his knowledge and color on the Ghost Island to look for him, he also knew Swain's knowledge and color clearly. Even Swain didn't notice this detail. After all, battles between strong men have always been straightforward, and it is rare to be so careful. Swain was flying in the air, looking down from time to time, as if he was looking for something. There are many forests in Wano country. From the sky, you can see a vast green ocean, and the breeze blows like thousands of waves. This place wasn't like this before, was it? Swain asked, standing in the air. During the initial crusade against Kaido, Swain had experienced this place. Because of its obvious geographical features, he was very impressed. Swain fell slowly. Mist gradually formed in the forest, and it was already evening. It's really strange. It's just that there's this kind of fog in the morning. How come it's there at night? The trees here are so tall that they can reach 40 or 50 meters high. They're truly towering trees, and blood-red drops are gradually dripping from the top of the tree shed. Boy, what are you doing here? A vigorous voice sounded. When Swain heard the sound, he saw a middle-aged man about 50 years old standing in the tree hole, which was at the central height of the tree. Then he said, "Leave quickly. Forget it, you can't get out of here at this time, come to me quickly." Swain was a little surprised. Few people dared to yell at him like this, but the other party had good intentions. Although he didn't know what was going to happen here, he still moved quickly to the tree hole. Swain asked in confusion, "Excuse me, why can't you go out at this time?" The middle-aged man seemed not to have expected Swain to have such skills, and said with some vigilance, "There will be a man-eating monster here later." Advertisement, man-eating monster. Right. I got separated from my friends and came here by mistake. The middle-aged man then let down his vigilance, because there are usually many people who come here by mistake. Can you tell me what this man-eating monster is about? The middle-aged man invited Swain into the tree hole and started chatting with him. Only then did Swain know that this man-eating monster had happened within the past month. The middle-aged man is called Cranny, and he is the deputy director of the military control station in Kuri, Wano. Someone was initially reported missing. When he investigated the case, he found that the clues of the missing person stopped here. When the missing person was found, only a shriveled body was left, which looked like it had been drained of blood. Moreover, the missing people are all powerful Ronin. This made him secretly vigilant, and a few days later, the bodies of 3 Ronin appeared in the forest one after another. The way of death is almost exactly the same as that of the first Ronin. But in the past 2 weeks, the missing people are no longer Ronin, but even locals. Vampire. Swain could only think of this kind of monster because it looked so similar to what Cranny described. But he had never heard of vampires existing in the pirate world. But there is one thing that Swain cares about very much, and that is that when Cranny mentioned that these people seemed to be attracted here. Swain felt a little horrified when he thought about it. Could it be that you were also attracted here? He suddenly thought that the mysterious strong man on Ghost Island could be the same person. As long as you stay here until dawn, you can leave here, Cranny repeatedly ordered. Swain nodded absently, thinking only of this mysterious powerful man. Cranny yawned. I'm going to bed first, you must not go out until tomorrow. After a while, the snoring sounded like thunder. The moonlight is beautiful. Swain looked up at the bright moon. The quiet night was very enjoyable. Swain's body flashed and he was in midair. Come out. His voice echoed alone in the night, and no one appeared after the echo completely disappeared. Are you so cowardly? Aren't you greedy for my flesh and blood? Swain began to say passionately. Ha 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 ha, you are such a crazy kid, I really like it. Chapter 149 Red Earl Advertisement. Ha 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 ha, you are such a crazy kid, I really like it. The voice was very neutral, and I couldn't tell whether it was a man or a woman. Swain looked around and saw a rather aloof figure against the bright moon. A pair of bright red wings on his back flickered like wine-red lamps in the moonlight. Is it the same person? Swain thought to himself. The domineering power burst out suddenly, like a flood bursting a bank, making it impossible for anyone to dare to resist. Young man, don't be so angry. At the same time, another domineering force that was comparable to Swain's came, and the two collided without a doubt. Sizz. Purple-black lightning formed hundreds of meters around them, like a concentrated electric field. The terrifying electric field turned several bats flying in the night into powder. During their first fight, Swain's eyelids twitched. The strength of the man in front of him is the strongest he has ever seen. Even the oppression given to him by Whitebeard is not as powerful as this man. This man can't be a nobody. It's a pity that Swain has exhausted all the people he knows in his mind, but no such person exists. But what is certain is that he must be a terrifying existence on the 6th floor of Impel Down City. There were only a few people whom Swain didn't know. Swain shook his head, cleared all the thoughts from his mind, and now he had to concentrate on dealing with the difficulties at hand. A snort. Swain's head was filled with white steam, and his body and mind seemed to have inexhaustible power. He directly entered the awakening state with just a test. Oh, when did such a strong man come to Wano country? It turned out to be the four emperors themselves? I'm so rude. The other party said apologetic words, but the offensive in his hands did not decrease at all. All nations. Swain shouted. A mirage suddenly appeared in the sky, which is the image of Chengdu condensed with seawater. With the power of a country, one person can be killed. The air was squeezed, making bursting sounds. Okay. The other party was not afraid at all, and was actually ready to attack him head-on. He fell quickly as if he was weightless, and then shot back up like a red comet. Swain didn't like to get angry, but he didn't expect that the other party would be so arrogant. Die. Aha. Aha. The dark clouds that were about to block the moonlight suddenly dissipated. Advertisement not only the sky, but also the forest on the ground flew away like a tide. Ha ha ha, you are very strong, your blood must be very delicious. Swain snorted coldly, stood slowly in midair with his hands behind his back. We were far away just now, and only then did we have the opportunity to see each other's face. The other person has a tall and thin figure, with white hair braided into two braids hanging on his shoulders. He is wearing a plum-red shirt and blood-red trousers, a large blood-red cloak on his body, and a blue rose around his neck. He always has an evil smile on his mouth, which makes people feel very uncomfortable. Is it you? Swain suddenly said, the alone red, Belloric Redfield. Do you recognize me? When Swain saw him admit it, his eyes showed shock. He is a contemporary of Roger, Whitebeard, Golden Lion, Garp, Sengoku and others. On his own, he is on par with Roger and Whitebeard, and is extremely powerful. He has possessed strong power of knowledge and color since he was a child. As he grows older, it becomes stronger and stronger, and he can see through people's hearts. But because of this, he was used to seeing the ugly hearts of the people around him, so he was greatly repulsed by people and developed a withdrawn character. Therefore, from the time he went to sea to the time he was arrested and imprisoned, he had no companions. The man who can sail across this sea by himself is also known as the Aloof Red and the Red Earl. Swain hummed. The remnants of the old era belonged to the top group. He gave this evaluation. Ha 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 ha, you have such a strong tone. The Red Earl was not angry and kept his elegant posture. He took out a goblet from somewhere, and inside it was still steaming blood. Swain frowned, guessing that this was the blood of previous victims. No matter what, these people are all under his rule. If they come here without saying a word to kill people and quench their thirst, Swain will get angry. Your Majesty doesn't seem to take me seriously. Are you referring to these? Red Earl shook the goblet. I will not drink the blood of these weaklings. Their deaths are caused by others. I will not act recklessly in the Four Emperors' territory. Ah ha ha ha. Swain was a little annoyed and didn't know what the other person was laughing at. Is there someone else? That's the deputy director of the military control station who wants to sleep with you. Swain was stunned when he heard this. He first felt that the other party was deceiving him. The Red Earl seemed to see his doubts, and the evil smile on his face grew stronger. Come closer and I can convince you. Seeing his appearance, Swain felt a chill on his neck. If it really happened, I'm afraid he would be bitten and fainted directly, right? Chapter 150 Fierce Fight Advertisement. Come here, I can tell you who it is. The Red Earl licked his lips and said. The fantasy beast vampire fruit, in theory, as long as there is blood, one can maintain youth and one's own strength forever. It is completely possible to achieve immortality. Swain looked at him warily and said, I will kill anyone who they are. I don't care about your answer. The Red Earl put away the smile on his face. Young man. I am the same age as you, and I am more arrogant than you, but I have not been destroyed by time in the end. Time is not forgiving. No matter what is powerful or noble, it will turn into nothingness in the face of time. Swain's expression was quite cold and he said, no matter how crazy I am, it has nothing to do with you. Very good. The other party clapped when he heard this. Although there was no hostility in the eyes, Swain felt unhappy. The eyes seemed to be teaching his juniors a lesson. Just remnants of the old era. Swain's thoughts moved slightly, and a sizzling sound suddenly appeared in the air within 100 miles. Then a huge blue ring appeared above their heads, like some ancient sacrifice. The Red Earl's pupils shrank, the dark red wings behind him began to vibrate rapidly, and the two sharp fangs on his mouth flickered in and out of sight in the moonlight. Immediately afterwards, a biting chill poured down from the ring formation. It's really scary, he's even more evil than me. The Red Earl put away his stuff. His body began to burn with blazing fire, isolating these obstructive chills. Swain has been observing the other party and secretly wondered, don't they all say that vampires are afraid of fire? Of course, this is only what he knew from watching movies in his previous life, and it does not fit the rules of this world. Swain turned his fingers into swords, and the icy cold air gradually turned into thousands of sharp swords, ready to go. As soon as Swain gives the order, these sharp swords will be struck out like rain. The Red Earl felt a trace of pressure, and his body instantly turned into a huge bat. His right wing flapped out, sending out a stream of blood nearly 10 meters long. He just heard him roar. The sound was so sharp that the birds that were closer were directly shaken to blood. Blood drop finger. His sound waves were like a sieve, turning the blood into the size of raindrops and shooting them out in unison. Go! Swain yelled. Thousands of arrows fired. Although I was surprised that the blood was not frozen by the low temperature, he was a legendary figure after all, so he would definitely have some tricks up his sleeve. Puff puff puff. From a distance, it looks like white and red fireworks, extremely gorgeous. Advertisement, Swain. I admit that you are very strong, but if it's just this level, you can't hurt me at all. Then give it a try. In just one sentence of conversation, they had already fought for dozens of rounds. Both are good at speed, but the red count is faster. His knowledge and speed come not only from the improvement of his fruits, but also from his decades of experience. Swain could not keep up with his speed. He clearly caught it in his consciousness, but when he predicted it the next second, the original trajectory had changed. Seeing and hearing color is much more powerful than me. Swain was speechless in his heart. Laugh. The sharp wings scratched across, leaving a shocking scar. Swain hurried forward and punched hard, and the powerful force of the sea shock contained in the punch quickly separated the two sides. Your blood is so delicious, and full of vitality, the Red Earl said with an evil smile. Seeing this, Swain did not move at all, and punched again, this time more powerful. The Red Earl was extremely fast and evaded smoothly without suffering any damage. The distance is enough, Domain, Swain thought to himself. An invisible wave started with him as the center and quickly spread to the surroundings. The Red Earl was extremely sensitive and noticed something was wrong. He quickly turned into a defensive state and looked at Swain warily. I found it, but not completely. Swain laughed in his heart. Now, the offensive and defensive forces are different. After Swain shouted, the surrounding space quickly experienced ripple-like dynamic changes. He changed this world from stillness to movement. This is... The Red Earl exclaimed in surprise, with an incredible expression on his face. He found that the knowledge, and color he was so proud of had invalidated at this moment. Swain quickly leaned forward, holding several circular formation rings in his hands, which could release shockwaves as powerful as earthquakes. You're too careless. Throw the formation ring to the opponent's chest and then explode. Swain quickly retreated 1,000 meters away, which he slowly compressed during the battle. The terrifying power was enough to destroy an island. However, he did not expect that this blow would kill the opponent, but it was enough to cause him serious damage. Really? The next moment, I heard non-stop coughing. Damn it, I almost fell into the hands of a brat like you. Chapter 151 Victory or Defeat. Advertisement. Swain's attack directly drove the Red Earl into the ground, revealing a deep hole. This old man resisted the beating in an unimaginable way, using 50% of my strength. Swain shook his arm, feeling a little sore in his shoulder. He reached into his pocket, took out a candy and ate it. He finally relieved his nervousness, and it was enough to find out the strength level of his opponent. Although he has never fought against Cyborg Kong, being able to arrest the Red Earl is considered an ability. This man is really powerful, at least a little stronger than Kaido. No wonder there was a legend in the sea that he could fight against the entire Whitebeard pirates at their peak. What a headache. I almost fell on you, kid. The Red Earl slowly rose into the air and continued to confront Swain. But the aloof look in his eyes gradually faded into a dignified look. It's just that one of the red wings on his back has been broken, and the other one is still swaying. Swain had a smile on his face. It's really novel to me that it can fly after breaking one. Humph. You kid got an advantage and still act like a good boy? I won't let you go next, Red Earl sneered. After all, he felt a little embarrassed to be defeated by a junior. Swain sneered coldly. Your knowledge is useless to me. Without eyes, no matter how fast you are just a headless fly. Besides, I'd like to know why you dare to do it but don't take it seriously. The Red Earl was not angry after hearing this. He tidied up his hair and said, Don't you dare. Kid, it's okay to tell you. I won't touch the blood of those bad people at all. The real murderer is the man in the tree hole. He should satisfy some small quirks. The people under your command are as interesting as you. Swain was not surprised when he heard this, and said to himself, It is indeed him. The stall in front of him was caused by himself, but the reason why he fought was because he really wanted to test his limits. Swain's face straightened up and he said, I'm going to start exerting my strength. Yelled. Poseidon. The blue rings on the dome gradually pulled down layer by layer, from large to small, and then a huge dragon-shaped creature appeared from it. It keeps rolling among the clouds, and from time to time it draws out the power of thunder and lightning. Its lifelike appearance makes people feel a sense of awe. Advertisement. If we say who is the real overlord of the ocean, everyone may have a different answer, and so does Swain, but he thinks it is a dragon. The Red Earl's eyes flashed. Is this a real dragon? Maybe. I'll crush it. Cloud Bat King. Chi and blood began to surge in his body, like a bat soaked in blood. Huge bats that looked exactly like him began to condense above their heads. As soon as they formed, they emitted terrifying sound waves, and the trees thousands of meters below their feet fell down like waves. The face is terrifying like a demon from ancient mythology. Under the sonic attack just now, Swain couldn't help but stumble a few steps before he stood still. The strength is really terrifying, but you still have to be defeated. Ha ha ha, you will know if you try it. Red Earl rushed forward against the biting cold wind. Seeing this, Swain quickly pressed down with both hands, and Hailong rushed down from the clouds with thunder and lightning. Before the moves of both sides touched each other, the airflow squeezed in the middle dispersed the dark clouds in the sky, and the moonlight that had just been blocked illuminated the earth brightly again. The center of the battlefield was covered with water mist, almost to the point where it was impossible to see visually. In the fog, one blue and one red, two figures alternately changed, and it was impossible to tell which one was stronger and which one was weaker. "You've exposed your flaws again," Swain shouted immediately. The hands circled into a circle, and then the surrounding kilometers rapidly changed and turned into the center of a vortex. Countless trees were uprooted by this gravitational force, and the ground became almost barren. "Dragon sucks water." A small vortex appeared on Swain's fingertips. When he moved his mind, the vortex raised up to the sky and made a loud noise, as if it was about to sweep the world away. Not to be outdone, the Red Earl suddenly thrust his right hand forward and roared, "Bloody hand." In an instant, his right hand turned into blood and dispersed, and then condensed into a bat's claw, which was so huge that it blocked the moonlight. "Fighting with a brat like you is such a waste of my energy and blood. I probably won't be able to make up for it even if it weighs several hundred kilograms." Swain shook his head secretly after hearing this. He was consuming the Red Earl's strength. It was probably impossible to kill him with one strike using his domain. And his sense of knowledge is extremely powerful, and once he discovers this novel fighting method, it will not be a good thing for Swain. It's better not to let others know your trump card. Chapter 152. Peace advertisement. The sky gradually turned white, the red sun rose high with a touch of red clouds, and the sky seemed to be on fire. Swain's eyes were a little tired. Although the battlefield was in midair, the ground was torn apart. The originally angry area has now become barren, with only some broken branches and leaves left. "It's really unpleasant," Swain said helplessly. He really had a feeling of powerlessness in his heart. The Red Earl was very strong, and coupled with his incredible speed, it was difficult to hurt him, not to mention that he could recover by just drinking some drinks, as before. "I originally thought of consuming him, but in the end, the Red Earl consumed himself. It was really a waste of effort." Swain was like this, and the Red Earl didn't feel well either. He looked even more embarrassed, his luxurious clothes were tattered, and the tiredness on his face was even more obvious than Swain's. "Damn it, this kid's endurance is really the only thing I've ever seen in my life. He has fought countless times in his life, and this is the first time he has encountered an opponent like Swain. Ever since he got the Phantom Beast Bat Fruit, even if he couldn't defeat his opponent, he could use up his stamina to kill him. The main theme is a tangled one, the enemy is tired and I am the god." But after playing with Swain for half a night, his experience gave him feedback that the other party was just tired, not exhausted. "It's so scary," he spat. "Monster, I was already thinking about retreating. There would be no benefit in continuing the fight." Swain didn't get any advantage, but instead lost a few bottles of good wine he had collected. Taking a step back, the more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Then he said angrily to Swain, "Kid, give me 2 bottles of your blood, and I can let you off the disrespect this time." The stronger the person, the more beneficial the blood in his body is to the Red Earl. Swain did not hear his threat, but he heard the word, "Want to leave? I haven't even considered the fact that you came to my territory privately. HMPH, I don't know what's good and what's good. I, the Red Earl, can't go anywhere in the world, let alone you. Even Holy Land Mary." Before he finished speaking, he suddenly remembered something. Just when he was escaping from prison, he seemed to have heard that someone was attacking Marijoya. Thinking back carefully, the name I heard at that time seemed to be Swain. At that time, he didn't know who Swain was, but he thought he was a courageous person who dared to sneak attack on the Holy Land. If he met him, he might be able to make friends. "It's you?" The Red Earl slowly came to his senses, with a look of shock in his pupils. Swain couldn't help but grinned and said, "It seems that those 5 old guys have sealed the news very well. A family scandal should not be publicized, let alone a national scandal like this. As soon as this news finds a place to speak, the world government will send CP organizations to covertly suppress it. Advertisement. I would rather kill someone by mistake than let this kind of news get out. Therefore, it can be said that there are very few people who know this kind of news. Except for those who have experienced it personally, it has almost become a taboo for ordinary people." "Good boy." Red Earl smiled. Inadvertently, the title has changed from kid to boy. It's just that his laughter always sounds so sinister, and it's hard to tell whether it's sincere or sarcastic. Regardless of whether he was sarcastic or not, Swain said impatiently, "There's so much nonsense." In an instant, he released the powerful conquerors again, wanting to express his determination to fight again. But the Red Earl was not happy anymore. Neither side could kill the other, but he clearly felt that Swain had become stronger in each battle. Even if the change was small, he could detect it based on his knowledge. And he also understood that what young strong men like Swain lacked most was a duel with stronger men. Although he is not a big man, he is very scheming. Working as a coach for one night was all for nothing, and it was the kind of paying money. "Stop your losses now and forget about it." Then, his expression gradually began to soften. From this night's battle, he felt that Swain was a man who would take the soft and not the hard. If you give him something hard, it will be detrimental to yourself. "Boy, do we have no hatred?" Swain simply ignored him. The Red Earl was a little angry, but it was not easy to fall out now. Just run. Swain's freezing power can restrict him. After much deliberation, it would be better to seek peace. I feel a little regretful in my heart, if I had a companion. Well, we don't know each other without fighting, how about that? There was silence again, and the Red Earl was about to get angry, thinking that even if he risked half his life, he would teach him a lesson for this ignorant boy in front of him. But Swain spoke. If you want blood, I have the blood of many strong men here. When the Red Earl heard this, his eyes almost lit up. Chapter 153 Night Owl Advertisement. Really? The Red Earl was a little surprised. He didn't expect the other party to be so easy to talk to. When something goes wrong, there must be a monster. He didn't believe that Swain would give it to him for free like this. Swain didn't even think about it and said decisively, "How could I lie to you?" When the Red Earl saw his appearance, his heart pounded. However, Swain's next words were able to clear up his doubts. "You can cooperate with me, and the reward for this cooperation will naturally be the blood of the strong," Swain said with a smile. Cooperation? The Red Earl heard the words and sneered. "I still say the same thing, the world is so big without me, the Red Earl. Is there anyone you can't kill?" Swain immediately interrupted and asked. Even if he can go, Swain can also say which part of the world he cannot go to. It's just a matter of whether to go or not and when. This rhetorical question choked him. If it was true as Swain said, he would not be sent to the advancement level prison and live a life of darkness there. Even now, every time I think about it, it feels like a nightmare. Life is worse than death, so, you also know what your biggest disadvantage is, your age. Hearing this, the Red Earl seemed to have heard some big joke and said, "As long as I have blood, I can stay young forever, and even, live forever." Swain didn't care what he said and said to himself, "I am referring to the age you have passed away. You chose to act alone when you needed your companions the most. The times have changed. The arrival of a new generation makes you panic. They're young, passionate, and have powerful companions. And you already feel tired." He was speechless for a long time after hearing Swain's words. Yes, maybe on the day he was released from prison, he would be full of fear when facing the world. This is also the reason why he has never dared to make a public appearance. Swain decided to take advantage of the opportunity. "Cooperate with me, and I can guarantee that you will not have any worries." "Do you think I'll agree?" "Brat, you will, otherwise you wouldn't have come to my territory." "Really?" The Red Earl stared at Swain. After a moment, he smiled. "You guessed wrong." "Oh," Swain raised his eyebrows, seemingly unexpected. "Of course, he just thought that the other party was being harsh. I was able to come to your territory only by accident, an enemy once hid here. Advertisement, but we can work together." Swain raised his eyebrows and smiled. For a strong man like the Red Earl to fight against him today, it already meant that they were at odds with each other. It's better to make fewer enemies. After all, his current bounty has reached 7 billion berry. It can be said that since the birth of the bounty, his bounty amount is the largest, ranking first on the list. Roger, who is second on the list, is too late to catch up with the horse. Of course, Swain won't worry about the high reward. He is cultivating a group of assassination organizations dedicated to killing Dracos, corresponding to the world government's CP organization. As for the leader of this assassination organization, Swain already had something in mind. You just need to take action at the right time. You can be wherever you want at other times. I won't care about you. Humph. You can't control me either. Swain shrugged after hearing this and said, "I need you to be the leader of an assassination organization." Assassination? Red Earl licked his lips and said. In fact, he didn't like assassination, but after eating the fruit, his temperament gradually changed. For example, he likes to kill his enemies. Swain knew what he meant when he saw his expression and said, "Don't worry, the bodyguards of the assassination target are all powerful people. You can deal with the blood of these people as you wish." The Red Earl did not agree immediately, but asked, "Are the bodyguards strong?" Thinking of Swain's criminal record, he asked, "Do you want me to hunt the Draco?" Swain nodded and said, "You guessed it right." He noticed that the Red Count used the word hunting, not assassination. What is hunting? A wolf chasing a sheep is hunting. It was obvious that he knew something that made him so disgusted with the Tianlong people. Swain knew that the young-looking man in front of him was about the same age as Whitebeard. "What do you know?" Seeing that he didn't understand, Swain reminded him, the blank history that Roger found. The Red Earl was shocked, but it was only fleeting. Didn't know that. Swain deliberately stared at him, with a look of knowledge, and noticed the emotional fluctuations at this moment. Yeah, right. The two of them had their own thoughts, and no one knew it clearly. Swain knew that the other party didn't want to tell them, and he didn't force them. He would definitely investigate them personally. "Can you be the leader of this organization?" The evil smile of the Red Earl hung on his face again, of course. "So what's the name of this organization?" The name. Swain held his chin and said, "Night Owl. Defeat the enemy at night." Chapter 154 Plan Advertisement. In just 1 week, dozens of high-ranking officials in the Swain Pirate Corps were killed. For a time, people who received this kind of news were in danger. He was very afraid that he would be the next victim, so he began to seek help from Swain, hoping to catch the leader of the Night Owl organization. Swain threw aside the stack of letters for help in front of him, his face so gloomy that he could shed tears. How could he not know that the assassination organization he founded had a reason to arrest him? But he just used it to test how many undercover agents there were in his system. He didn't expect that one explosion could explode so many. What an unexpected gain. Swain has a long list in his hand, which is information collected secretly by the Night Owl organization. I thought your men were very loyal, the Red Earl spoke calmly. He began to feel disdainful in his heart, and his companions were also full of excitement for him. Let me help you get rid of these people. Swain raised his brows and said with a half smile, you don't need to take action this time, I'll give them a chance. After saying hello, a noble-dressed soldier came over. This was Swain's personal guard. Seeing this, the Red Earl lowered his head and fled into the darkness, disappearing without a trace. You go tell Luo and let out the news so that some people who have made mistakes can go to him and surrender. Otherwise, the gangsters will continue in the past few days, and their families will not be spared. The soldier said with a serious face and a serious expression, follow your orders. Only when Swain was alone in the house again did the Red Earl appear. Your move is interesting, but I'm sure no one will be stupid enough to be fooled by your words. Yes, these old foxes will definitely clean up the odor. But, Swain suddenly laughed, I will send them a few companions, who surrender. The Red Earl was stunned when he heard this, and laughed after understanding Swain's words. The real old fox turns out to be here. Holy Land, Marie Joya. With the gathering of manpower and material resources from all over the world, this glorious city is now showing its powerful side. The workers are no better than livestock. They are constantly being whipped by the supervisors, and as long as they take a break, they will be slapped in the face. Advertisement. These supervisors were nowhere to be seen when Swain attacked Mary Joa. After seeing their retreat, they pretended to fight to the death and rescued many dying celestial dragons. Although the Tianlong people will not be grateful at all, they are still willing to be ruled, and servility has long been burned into their minds. In Penghu City, the highest power council hall, Swain deserves to die. Many people died on our side, Saint Nisholong said with an angry look. The small glasses on his face seemed to be unable to withstand his anger, and gradually tended to crack. Saint Satan immediately agreed. If we don't kill him, our face will be ruined by this brat for hundreds of years. There was no expression on St. Peter's face, and his voice was hoarse as he said, the other party is already the 4 emperors. Instead of arguing here, it would be better to ask the gentleman for his opinion. Saint Satan was about to retort, but he wisely shut up after hearing the second half of Saint Pitt's words. Everyone was silent, not knowing if they couldn't come up with a better idea or if they were afraid of something. Since there is no objection, let's ask that adult for instructions together. As St. Peter stood up, everyone had no choice but to follow. As they walked through a quiet corridor, they could smell the faint fragrance of flowers, and there were several colorful birds on the fence in the distance, chirping at them. However, they only focused on their immediate journey and had no feeling for these sounds and smells. We walked for about a quarter of an hour. A medieval castle appeared. Except for some rust on the windows of the castle, there was no way to tell how old it was. There were no guards outside the door, so they walked straight in. The castle was huge, and the decoration inside felt like entering a garden. Peter Saint and the 5 of them glanced above. There are many iron swords around the throne, a total of 21, symbolizing the 21 kings and families who established the world government. No one should be able to sit on this throne, but today someone is sitting on it. Sir, the 5 of them knelt down on one knee. We are here to ask for your advice regarding 4 emperors Swain. I stood up, walked to the map instrument nearby, and looked at the location of an island. Beehive Island. He pointed with his hand, his eyes a little erratic. Saint Satan and Swain fought each other, and he leaned forward and said, we ask you to. Chapter 155. No deal advertisement. Saint Satan said sincerely. I beg you to allow us to resolve this matter. The respectful look in his expression made it difficult to refuse his request. Just raised her eyes and glanced at him, then sat there quietly, like a divine statue. Don't screw up again this time, said coldly. The unquestionable attitude in his tone shocked the hearts of these 5 old people. Unconsciously, he lowered his head a little more. Who would have thought that the 5 people standing at the top of the power pyramid would be as silent as a few erring children in front of this man? Stood up and walked to the depths of the garden alone. Saint Satan and the others knew that they were going to drive them away. Several people left the castle in a hurry. When they saw the same scenery again as when they came, they felt different emotions in their hearts. Saint Wachuli, who was always taciturn, said with some bitterness, since you have boasted so much in front of Lord Swain must win it as soon as possible. I will take the lead in this matter, Saint Satan replied. His heart was still full of resentment towards Swain, and that kick made him so miserable that he lost all face. Even though Satan's sacrament will see this later and everyone will be killed, the hurdle in their hearts is still insurmountable. Heart disease cannot be cured. His power cannot be underestimated now. He is already the most powerful among the 4 emperors. Saint Nisholong brought the famous sword in his hand closer to him and said, for the current plan, we can only use assassination and ingenuity. Kill both. The first type of assassination, the CP espionage organization cultivated by the world government, is one of the most notorious. But assassinations of that level only target relatively weak people, and are mainly a way to control public opinion. Killing 4 emperors at this level is almost unimaginable. Even if 3-4 emperors confront Swain head-on at the same time, they may not be able to kill him. If you can't fight, run away, keep the green hills, and don't worry about running out of firewood. The second way to kill openly is to dispatch the combat power of marine and world government to destroy the entire Hive Island. With the current combat power of the Swain pirates, it is a bit difficult to kill him. This must be taken into consideration. Each of the 4 kings under him has the strength of a general, Saint Pid said calmly. Saint Moshe took a breath and said, if we attack openly, it will be more difficult for the opponent to shrink their combat power. Their overall combat power is more powerful than Whitebeard. For today's plan, we can only make breakthroughs one by one. Advertisement Saint Satan took over the words. Swain can defeat Saint Garen. He alone can hold down 2 of the 5 of us. The 5 of them knew exactly how strong GL and Shang was. If they could tie with him, they were already qualified to be among the 4 emperors. What's more, after defeating him, he was still seriously injured and unconscious. If we had known about the battle between Swain and Kaido in advance, we could completely exclude CP0 from assassinating him on the way. It is such a pity that such a good opportunity was missed. Saint Satan sighed with some regret. Although he can only kill people with a nod of his head, he can only kill ants. If he is an unparalleled strong man, then he has to worry about himself. Things have to be prioritized. Let the power struggle between Kuzan and Sakazuki stop now, Peter Saint said calmly, until the matter of Warring State's resignation is dealt with. Before he finished speaking, there was a rush of footsteps in the hall, which seemed to be an emergency. Report to the 5 elders. Just 3 hours ago, the Holy Family of Rosewade were all killed on their way back. Saint Peter said angrily. Have you found out who it is? According to what Marine said, they suspect it's Beloric Redfield. What? Saint Satan couldn't help but exclaimed in shock. Moshe Shang stroked his beard and seemed a little surprised. He shouldn't do such a thing. To say that the Red Earl was also a top powerhouse when he was young, he naturally attracted the attention of the 5 elders. Moshe Shang was the person he had fought against. Is there any misunderstanding in this? In addition, the Red Earl ate the bat fruit, and his strength returned to its peak, or even improved. To offend such a person rashly is something they cannot bear at this stage. No. Not sure, the messenger replied. He was frightened on the surface, but he was a little puzzled in his heart. Usually, if someone dared to offend the Tianlong people, they would often use generals to hunt them down. Why did everyone seem to be afraid of something today? Thinking about the buildings here before I came here, they were very different from before. Could it have been a sneak attack? But then he gave up this idea. This kind of thing is not something that a little guy like him can know. However, when I heard the name Swain before I came here, he was a strong man that I admired in my heart. Even if the camps were different, his personality charm could not be erased. Chapter 156 Returning Hometown Advertisement July. This is probably the hottest season in the pirate world. The ancient and new decree was also announced on the first day of this month, and he ordered the 3 marine generals to travel secretly with them. The euphemistic name is to train the energy of generals, but in fact they serve as bodyguards and thugs. However, warring states rarely refused once, for the simple reason that the number of pirates doubled again. Marine headquarters will have a travel file, and every trip of lieutenant general and above will be recorded. Just at the end of last month, the 3 generals alone made as many as 20 trips each time. On average, I have to go out to perform tasks almost every day and a half. Like in the original plot, generals are basically like mascots, and it is almost rare to see them take action. But after Swain's recruitment order was issued, the number of pirates changed. The benefits and treatment he provides are almost 3 to 4 times better than those of Marine. And just like mercenaries, as long as you give them money and food, they will obey your orders. Only Swain's Golden City can support such a war machine recruitment. In this world where the weak prey on the strong and wars occur frequently, such treatment arouses the fanatical pursuit of many people. Most of them are people who are dissatisfied with real life and government rule. Just like Kaido and Whitebeard in the past, they originally had a good life, but because they could not pay the heavenly gold, the country completely fell into a paradise of war. After all, conflicts among all classes in this world are very sharp, but we just need to see who dares to stand up and raise the banner. Red Hair doesn't dare, Whitebeard doesn't dare, Roger doesn't dare. These peerless heroes are also the chosen ones. In the face of this surging historical trend, no one dares to build a bunch of flood control dams. But Swain dared. This is why it took him only 2 years to firmly sit on the throne of 4 emperors, and his momentum is stronger than the other 3. Therefore, the generals are exhausted and often have just completed the task here and have not rested yet. The next task follows. Even Uncle Huang, who always loves to be lazy, has to use his flashing speed to travel to various places. At the same time, the revolutionary army headed by Long was active in various countries, killing kings and nobles at every turn and revolting on the spot, while neighboring countries followed closely behind. During this period, various religions began to recruit believers and trainees, spread theories about gods, and began to destroy the image of world government. The CP espionage organization has killed thousands of people everywhere in just 1 month and made people panic. The rules and order of the world are out of order. In the current order, no one can be said to be just. Only true power is just. Advertisement. This is why the 5 elders want to kill Swain as soon as possible. As long as there is no call from him, a reactionary leader, other forces will slowly fall silent. This is the saying that if you hit with 1 punch, you will avoid hundreds of punches. Swain didn't know that the 5 elders were going to kill him personally, and even if they knew, he wouldn't be afraid. If he were alone, there would be no doubt that he would be defeated, but behind him he had the strength to destroy Marine headquarters. He is heading somewhere now. There was eagerness and hesitation on his face, some hope and some fear. He has never returned home since he became the 4 emperors. Although he also wanted to take the old man over, he was still stopped by his reason. He can guarantee that he will be protected for a while, but he cannot protect the old man all the time. So today he is still walking alone. All his whereabouts are hidden. I'm afraid that the hawks and dogs of the world government will follow these clues to find clues. In just 3 days, Swain arrived at the former Sea of Silence of Death. On this trip, he was wearing the same mask he wore when he met Absalom last time. No one knows his true identity except the Red Earl. Swain stood among the clouds, looking at the uninhabited island to see if it was any different from what he remembered. It's a pity that no changes can be seen. The flowers bloom and fall as if they are following the laws of nature, and there are no traces of human life at all. As soon as he set foot on the island, Swain's knowledge covered the entire island. He closed his eyes and felt the movement of every plant and tree in his mind. Suddenly, he finally felt that familiar scent, old man. I feel even more timid when I'm close to my hometown and don't dare to ask anyone. Although his relatives were right in front of him, Swain felt a little withdrawn. Like a child who has done something wrong, he is afraid of punishment from his elders. He was afraid that Warri would disapprove of him or even oppose him after knowing what he had done. Suddenly there was a roar in the forest, and the sound waves could make unripe bananas fall off the trees. Several giant apes were like small hills, running towards Swain, with smoke billowing along the way. Does the old man regard me as an intruder? Swain smiled at the thought. Immediately afterwards, a powerful domineering force burst out, almost so solid that it was visible to the naked eye. Shrouded these menacing apes together. Chapter 157, Drunken and Fascinated. Advertisement. At first, the giant ape only felt a cold wind blowing through him. After being enveloped by the domineering energy, it felt like he had fallen into hell. His eyes gradually became blurred and he fainted on the ground. But Swain's domineering power was far more than that. Those who ran in the deep bushes and flew through the woods all fainted under his domineering power. It's as if he is the real king of this land. Whoosh whoosh. Several arrows were shot at here from a distance, extremely fast, as if they wanted to kill with one hit. Swain's thoughts moved slightly, and a protective area formed around him. The arrow landed on his blue protective circle and instantly fell into pieces. Warri, who was hiding in the dark, frowned. He had realized that this enemy was extremely powerful before, and it was stronger than ever before. It gives him the feeling that you can even kill him easily. Swain's sense of perception could see through Warri's every move, and he couldn't help but smile when he saw it. The old man is still so cautious. Then his figure flashed and left the place. Warri over there was about to think about how to deal with this man, but in the blink of an eye, he disappeared. A moment. His hair stood on end, and he suddenly retreated, then scattered many arrows on his back. These arrows are made of bamboo and camphor wood, and their lethality is not great at all. However, under Warri's men, it is enough to penetrate the enemy's body because it is covered with powerful armed colors. Who are you? Warri asked in shock. Swain did not speak, but looked at Wally with a smile. Warri snorted coldly and stepped forward in an instant. This is the first time Swain has seen the old man's true strength. Just this shaving move has already reached the level of proficiency. Wally walked around behind him, and when he saw that Swain was still not hiding, he felt happy. What a good opportunity. His arms now became very large and no longer belonged to normal people. Sen Sheng fist. Swain slowly stretched out a finger, 2 airwaves separated from the fingertips and collided with his fist. There was extreme shock in Wally's deadwood eyes. The old man has great energy, Swain said with a faint smile. Advertisement. The mask on his face was also removed. It turns out it's you, little brat. Warri suddenly beamed with joy and said, why are you back? I'm here to take you back to enjoy your happiness. Ha ha ha, good boy, I deserve to support you so much. The situation was unstable before. I know. Warri kept chanting, as long as you can come back. Swain felt a little uncomfortable when he heard this, and when he saw Warri's completely white hair, his eyes suddenly became sore. Old man, I killed those people until they were scared. Warri certainly knew who the people he was talking about were, but he did not show relief. Instead, he said with some worry. Have you fought against the 5 elders? They are very powerful. Even if you are the 4 emperors now, you still have to fight. Be careful. Swain nodded and said, Satan Saint has fought with me, but he is not strong. Warri didn't know which of the saints was Satan. He only knew that these people were the culprits who brought his own race to the point of being almost exterminated. Although the hatred was still there, it was relieved a lot after seeing Swain. He didn't want to put the child in danger to avenge himself. After all, I was changed by you. Warri laughed and returned to his former cheerfulness. He once trained Swain for revenge, but now he is like an ordinary father who only wants to let his children live well. Wally took Swain's hand and said, let's go, we won't come home until we get drunk today. I didn't bring any wine. Swain spread his hands. I have wine that has been brewing for 30 years under the house, Warri said generously. I usually don't want to drink these wines, just so that I can be drunk to death when I'm about to die. Take it out to drink today, it's worth it for him. Just like a wanderer returning home, parents will diligently prepare all kinds of food and drinks that they would not be willing to eat or drink. Their children's happiness is their greatest happiness. Swain caught 3 rabbits, 10 large chickens, deer, wild boars, crocodiles. The pile almost formed a hill. Then they dug a big hole in the ground, set up dozens of stands, and started baking at the same time. Within a moment, the fragrance hit his nostrils, and he sprinkled condiments on it like water. Warri's eyelids jumped when he saw it. It was difficult for spices to survive on this island. These were all things he had saved over the past few years. It doesn't matter. Just eat happily. When the spices are gone, you can plant them again. Once people leave, you don't know when you will see them again. Beside the bonfire, the smell of barbecue is great. Sit facing the shadow, and get drunk. One old and one young, living happily and carefree in this silent night. It wasn't until midnight that the two of them finally got drunk and fell asleep. Chapter 158 Leaving, a new war, advertisement? Master, do you really not want to go back with me? When I woke up again, it was already 3 days later. No, haha, I'm satisfied to see you achieve such a high level of achievement. Warri's face was a little saggy with age, but he still looked kind. If I go to your place, I'm afraid it will only cause trouble for you. Swain couldn't force him after hearing this, so he had to let him go. Once people get older, they like to find a quiet place. There is one thing you should pay attention to. Be careful in everything, as long as you can survive. I don't want my old bones to grow old alone. Swain smiled and said, how could that be? The two looked at each other and smiled again. I left last year when I was young for the first time, and I left again when I was young. One night in the boat, there were empty gulls, and the sun set in the west. The old man sent his children away from home again. Send him where he belongs. The times belong to young people. Warri sighed slightly. It will be difficult to see each other again after this farewell. The time was pushed back to 3 days ago, when Swain first met Warri. Beehive Island, Golden City, and the great powers embracing Wano were attacked after Swain. The Marine headquarters dispatched hundreds of warships and supported the joint attack with assassinations from the world government, which lasted for 2 days. In the highest power command post on Honeycomb Island, the 4 kings appeared together at the same time. Norton said anxiously, haven't you found it yet? The others looked at each other and saw confusion in each other's eyes. Luo said a little tiredly, for now, let's put the boss's affairs behind us and fight off the Marine in front of us first. He had barely slept in the past 2 days, and he and Yishao were still making plans at the critical moment. Blake also spoke at this time, his voice slightly lowered. I heard that the 5 elders were also involved? Everyone knows that he has always been steady and will not tell news that is not related to official matters. The command room suddenly fell into an eerie silence, which meant that the 5 elders had personally ended up, apparently to avenge the bloodbath in the Holy Land. Whatever, I will crush whoever comes. Norton took a deep breath and said. The strength of the 5 elders has always been unknown, but those who can firmly sit at the top of power will be very strong. What's more, Akainu, one of the 3 generals, is here this time. It can be said to be adding insult to injury. When he became more nervous, Luo became very calm. I estimate that the master will be back in less than 3 days, as long as we can take the call step by step. Advertisement we can only cope with the ever-changing situation by remaining unchanged. The other 3 nodded in agreement. Yishao also raised a question. What if I can't hold on until that time? After hearing this, Norton's face instantly turned ugly. Luo knew that Yishao always considers the consequences when doing things, and typically considers failure before winning. He usually considers himself a wise man, so he naturally thinks about the aftermath of defeat. After pondering for a moment, he said with a serious face, if that time comes, I can only ask Black. With Black's ability to flutter the fruit, he can still make these 3 islands leave. Blair didn't seem to expect that such an important thing would be left to him, and he felt a little grateful. I will. Thus, a temporary plan emerged. Marines' hundreds of warships, just as Luo envisioned, cannot be consumed at all, and they cannot afford to stay at all. And there was an inconspicuous warship at the very edge, with only 3 people inside. I really didn't expect you to come, Kizaru said in surprise. This was as surprising as giving him the benefit of paid leave. Saint Satan held a crutch with both hands and said with a somewhat cold look in his eyes, well, I have to end some things. Compared to Kizaru, Akainu has always been straightforward in his speech, saying, Swain destroyed most of the Holy Land. It would be a joke if he doesn't take action again. Hearing this, Saint Satan slammed his crutch downwards, and the warship was directly pierced. His words were still cold. Watch your language, Sakaski. Did Zephyr teach you to talk to your boss like this? Akainu was not used to it, and his temper suddenly rose. This time the troops were sent out just to save the face of the so-called world government, and to ignore the people who were in danger. What a travesty. As everyone knows, in the original world, after he became fleet admiral, he sacrificed thousands of innocent lives just for a little face. When Kizaru saw this, he quickly smoothed things over. Let's focus on the matter in front of us. Tomorrow, we must capture Beehive Island and capture Swain's head at all costs. Saint Satan gave an ultimatum. This time he did not come alone, but with Saint Nisholong and Saint Pitt. It's just that the other 2 are in other companies, and he is the overall person in charge of this attack. The conversation between the 3 ended in a quarrel between Akainu and Saint Satan. At night, when everything fell into silence, there were 3 black light arrays under the moonlight, emitting penetrating will-o'-the-wisps. After a while, 3 figures of Yanghua appeared. I saw Swain and will be back here at dusk the day after tomorrow, St. Peter said. His knowledge is extremely powerful and can be used to predict the future. We must kill his 4 kings tomorrow, otherwise it will be even more difficult to deal with them when their backbone comes back. Chapter 159. White-hot advertisement. This siege came suddenly. Many pirates fought for a day and are still in a state of confusion. I don't know where Marine came from. Some old pirates spat and said, it's really unlucky. I cut off 2 heads today, and one of them was trampled to pieces. Hey, kid, what are you doing hiding there? Are you talking about me? Who else could it be if I weren't you? You're so stupid, this is not playing house. There were old pirates who stopped to rest for a while, so they were not surprised by this. Veterans intimidating recruits is the most common thing in the army. If you want to get out here, you must either have strength or qualifications. Adams politely said, thank you for reminding me, I will pay attention to it. 2 years later, the boy who had run away from home had a dark face and a strong body, and no longer had the scholarly energy of the past. He admired Swain extremely and regarded him as his life mentor. He even secretly hid his reward order just to encourage him. He took all the trouble to come to Beehive Island just to see the true face of his idol. But by chance, he didn't catch up with the attack on the Holy Land, but instead caught up in this more dangerous defensive battle. Hey, I think you are still weak. Get out of here quickly, this is not a place for you to stay. Adams showed the military rank on his arm. He was already at the platoon leader level. He smiled and said, don't treat my little kid like that. Several veterans looked at each other and laughed. They are the first group of people to follow Swain, and they are also the most solid foundation of this group. Not to mention the platoon leader, even the battalion commander couldn't control these people. They only obeyed Swain's orders, and other people's orders were ignored. This time it was entirely out of self-defense and was managed by Norden, the Eastern King, one of the 4 kings. Do you know where these puppet soldiers come from? The pirates under Swain generally like to call Marine the puppet army, thinking that they are the regular political power. After Adams pondered for a moment, he replied, these Marines probably come from the Holy Land. This is the only way to achieve this speed. Holy Land. I said that when I came back last time, I chose a road that I had never walked before. That's it. The Red Continent separates this world, and together with the Grand Line, it divides the sea into 4 parts, East Sea, South Blue, West Blue, and North Blue. Pirates come from any one of the 4 sea areas. If you want to enter the Grand Line, you must pass through the Red Earth Continent for the first time. Entering New World is in the second half of the Grand Line. The key entrance here is controlled by the world government. If you want to pass through here, you must have the government's permission, otherwise you have to go further and start from Fishman Island. Several veterans joked again, you shouldn't come to the front line, it's better to be a staff officer. Adams rubbed his head in embarrassment. He didn't like to stay in a comfortable place. The more dangerous the place, the more challenging it was. Only in this way can you become a strong person. Alert, the whole army is ready. A piercing cry sounded, and everyone's expression changed drastically and he stood up quickly. Advertisement, don't you even want to relax for a while at night? Someone complained angrily. But when 2 armies fight, victory will only favor the side that is well prepared. Seeing that the people around him were slacking off, Adams reminded, everyone, cheer up, this attack may be even more fierce than before. Really, as he said, this offensive is even greater than the previous ones combined. This time, General Kizaru takes the lead. That's Kizaru? Someone shouted in horror. We are no match at all, run quickly, bang 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 bang. Several gunshots rang out, and the military judge opened fire very simply, killing these deserters. If you dare to take a step back, kill. He was ruthless, his voice was full of coldness, and the murderous intent in his eyes seemed to overflow. If these people are really allowed to flee, it will completely destroy the morale of the army. Prince Ming will be here soon, don't be afraid, everyone, shouted someone from the front line that was about to collapse. After everyone heard this, they mustered up the courage to resist desperately. The military judge nodded kindly to Adams. He didn't know where Swain was or when he would come. But in order to stabilize the situation, he had no choice but to shout like this. Not only on this front line of battlefield, Akainu also took the lead in another battlefield. This general kills people as easily as crushing ants. I saw Akainu yelling, meteor volcano, countless rocks composed of magma smashed to the ground from the air. This kind of large-scale destruction is simply fatal damage to the enemy. Once the magma sprays on you, it can cause serious injuries in an instant and almost make you lose your fighting ability immediately. Seeing this miserable situation, Akainu snorted coldly. It's vulnerable. If this is the only strength, I think Swain should remove the flag of 4 emperors and surrender to Marine. You haven't shown up yet, so you must have turned into a coward. These words almost shook the resolve of the resisting pirates. Most of them would not know that Swain dared to fight Akainu before he became emperor, let alone his current status. The situation on the battlefield is changing rapidly. The war was already tilted towards Marine. Good thing. Yishao and Norden promptly supported these 2 fronts. Norden versus Kizaru. Yishao versus Akainu. The arrival of these 2 men also brought back the pirates who were on the verge of collapse. Chapter 160 Reinforcements Advertisement, is that you? Akainu asked with surprise in his eyes. Yishao's expression did not change at all. Even if the other party was General Marine, he was still not afraid. Instead, he said calmly, "It's such an honor to be remembered by General Marine." He slowly fell from the air, and the cone-shaped stones under his feet turned into powder. It is obvious that this is a combination controlled by gravity and is not cut at will. This detail is enough to prove the terrifying degree of his control over the fruit's ability. Then Yishao tapped the ground with the scabbard, and the purple gravity ring began to affect the surrounding environment. Akainu's meteor volcano was still falling into rock magma, but then it suddenly stopped in the air, was changed by invisible gravity, flew in the opposite direction, and fell into the sea. "Your Excellency is too violent. My subordinates have been injured a lot by you." Akainu snorted indifferently. "It wouldn't be a pity even if we kill them all. The crimes committed by these scum cannot be redeemed in hell." Lava was bubbling out of his red left hand, and the air was so hot that it began to flow rapidly. The hot wind blew on a smiling face. He held the gravity knife steadily with both hands and said, "Under my management, I have not heard them killing any civilians. On the contrary, they are very friendly to the residents of their own country." Yishao likes to call the triangle area of Beehive Island, Wano Country and Golden City a country. The residents living here include family members of the core, children and relatives, as well as the original locals. Since Swain carried out drastic reforms and promulgated policies, the core does not dare to do anything to the civilians. Not only that, they also help when they are in trouble, and it is free of charge and no commission is charged. Although the core complained about this in the early days, due to high-pressure rule and Swain's prestige, they had to change their bad habits. Gradually, the regiment's reputation improved rapidly and it became a benevolent and righteous army. Then the recent war to defeat the gods pushed this army to a peak. So, Yishao is right to say this. Since justice in this world is no longer standardized, everyone can be righteous for themselves. In his mind, the Swain Pirate Corps is the force that can re-pacify the world. Akainu bit the cigarette holder hard and said with great force, "That's ridiculous. Only Marine is the real justice." "Then a battle is inevitable," Yishao replied in a neither humble nor condescending manner. Akainu's left hand began to swell instantly and turned into the shape of a dog. The fangs in his mouth were wrapped in magma, and his pair of dull eyes gave it a terrifying aura. This is one of his killer moves, Canine Tooth Red Lotus. The terrifying magma quickly turned into a beast and pounced on the opponent. Yishao knew how powerful the opponent was and did not dare to neglect him. He slightly arched his legs and drew his sword. Advertisement, Gravity Knife Tiger. The moment he swung the knife, a purple magnetic field rippled around, wrapping the magma and squeezing it continuously, making a B***** G sound. The two forces are like clear rivers, and no one can go further. After a moment of stalemate, Akainu held it tightly with his other hand and suddenly blasted it into the sky. A waterfall of magma appeared in the sky, covering an area without any obstruction, like a dragnet. Some cadres in the regiment wanted to stop him, but they pushed forward, only to leave a scream and disappear into the air. Yishao's sense of knowledge is so strong. After discovering this meaningless help, he shouted loudly, "Everyone, please step back. This is not a battlefield you can touch." This is not alarmist talk, but stark reality. A fight between two powerful generals could even destroy an island and permanently change the island's climate. At the same time, Norton also arrived at the battlefield and confronted Kizaru. "It's really scary," Kizaru pursed his lips and said in horror. Norton smiled narrowly and said, "Naturally, I will let you realize how scary I am." Finished. He jumped back into the air, his wings spread out with a sizzling sound, and the pink unicorn armor suddenly covered his body, creating an endless scene. Norton held the knife in one hand, flames burned on the back of the knife, and struck it into the air, leaving an afterimage of the setting sun streaking across the sky. Kizaru drew out the Amakong Yun sword from his right hand, swung it left and right, and shuttled along the path of light refraction. The collision of red light and yellow light continued to collide in the sky, and the overflowing power made the surrounding ground uneven. "It seems that I haven't moved for a long time, and I feel a little bit of pressure," Kizaru said casually, blocking the blow with his hand. Norton saw the fine sweat on Kizaru's forehead and sneered. "You are really old and useless. I think it is better to sit on the deck of the Marine and retire." He took the opportunity to flick his tail, which was extremely powerful. Kizaru's pupils shrank and he immediately elementally evaded it. "You are such an idiot," Norton laughed and cursed again. This is just a cover-up to confuse him. The real killing move is gathering in his hands. Julian Fire Dragon. Chapter 161 Battle Advertisement. Julian Fire Dragon. Norton shouted. A cluster of scattered light began to emanate from his body. He spread his wings and folded his arms together. Suddenly a roar came from the sky. The shock made everyone present's ears numb, and they unconsciously covered their ears. A fire dragon hundreds of meters long slowly emerged from the flame halo and wandered around the world. Kizaru looked at the sky with a look of disbelief in his eyes. He opened and closed his mouth as if he didn't know what to say. He had long thought that the two young men from the Saboti Islands would become very powerful in the future. But this power seems to be beyond his expectation. The fire dragon came out in its entirety, suddenly raising the temperature of the world. The marine soldiers who got close had to use their armor to protect themselves, but even so, it was still difficult. "Retreat quickly!" Someone shouted. Soldiers from both sides finally realized something was wrong and retreated from the battlefield like a tide. 8-foot beautiful Magatama. Kizaru would not change his body into light particles, and he was in midair in the blink of an eye. The cold wind blew his cloak, and his body seemed a little thin in front of the fire dragon. He looked at Norton's casual smile and suddenly felt a little dazed, and the movements of his hands couldn't help but stagnate. It wasn't because of Norton's Lunaria status, but because he vaguely felt the aura of his youth. It's good to be young. He sighed. Then the hand movements began to become fierce again, and countless light points of destructive power were shot towards the fire dragon. The battle situation became inextricable at this moment. The 8-foot Magatama was like raindrops, gradually converging into the size of a city wall, making the fire dragon unable to advance or retreat in a controlled manner. Norton knew that it was impossible to solve the opponent with one move, so the afterimage flashed past and came to the light wall. Since the fire dragon is difficult to break through, let's use physical skills to break through. The Lunaria tribe was born to be known as the gods, and this was not the false god that the celestial dragons were praised for. They are born with physical advantages, which is understandable. Norton attached his domineering energy to the linea, and he punched hard. The linea protruded into a sharp weapon, and at this time, it was able to punch cracks. Kizaru's eyelids jumped when he saw it. Such a strong defense could be broken. He secretly thought in his heart that he is really a monster. Both of them are strong men who are known for their speed. They are so fast in the sky that it is difficult for people to distinguish them. Advertisement within a few rounds, Norton had steadily suppressed Kizaru. Before he could feel proud, he saw that the other party had his hands around his abdomen, and there were spots of light all around him, gradually converging into the size of a mirror, making it difficult to open one's eyes. This? Norton secretly asked in alarm. In just a few breaths, there were already thousands of mirrors, with dazzling light coming out from them. Be careful, I'm not someone to be bullied, Kizaru said in a slightly relaxed tone. No matter what he did, he always looked like he didn't take it to heart at all. When Norton heard this, he responded unceremoniously, "Humph, stop pretending." Kizaru clicked his finger lightly, and a powerful laser beam was reflected from the mirror and shot out from all directions. The gaps between the mirrors are very close, and the laser light is reflected almost in a curve. When Norton sensed the danger, he quickly folded his wings. It won't cause any harm at all if hit on the body. At first there were only one or two, and then there were dozens or hundreds of beams, surrounding every corner with water. The feeling of one pinprick is indeed very small, but when there are hundreds or thousands, the feeling will make a qualitative leap. Norton can break dozens of mirrors with one punch, but there are too many light mirrors. It seriously hindered his actions, and he became increasingly depressed. Suddenly, more than a dozen yellow apes appeared at the same time from all directions. Kizaru can still do ninjutsu? Norton wondered in his heart. He had seen this kind of clone technique in Wano country. He remembered that one of the 9 heroes of the Red Sky who managed internal affairs could use it. I still found it interesting at the time, and thought that the avatar technique was really useless, almost like performing acrobatics. Now if you use a knife on a general, it is no longer useless, but a real killing move. Put yourself in your shoes and imagine what would happen if a dozen generals besieged you. Shattered to pieces. It doesn't work even when the 4 emperors come. When he saw so many Kizaru rushing towards them, his heart felt numb, and he quickly did not dare to neglect them. He roared with rage, and the dark clouds in the sky were shaken away. Then the body began to grow longer and larger, turning into a giant pink dragon. There are pink flame clouds flowing on the wings behind the dragon and on its neck. There are still thick flames all around, like gods, standing there, not angry and majestic. Chapter 162. In time advertisement. The flame clouds gave off wisps of white smoke, and the high temperature baked the air into mist, covering up the dragon's appearance. Several dragon whiskers floated in the air, making it look particularly mysterious. Kizaru watched the changes in Norton's body with great interest. This was his first contact with him, and his physical characteristics were a bit different from those of the Lunaria tribe. It's more like eating a devil fruit, and it's a relatively familiar fruit. The wind in the air was strong, buzzing in his ears, and he squinted his somewhat cloudy eyes to look. Only then did I remember where I had seen it. Isn't this what Kaido looked like when he was captured in the early years? He even fought against him but was defeated steadily. But now the color of the dragon form has changed. So, he asked, did you eat the fruit of Kaido of the 100 Beasts? When the host is killed, the devil fruit will place its power on the next fruit, thus forming an ongoing inheritance. This fruit was made by your marine scientists. After all, I still have to thank him. Norton spoke in a dragon voice, which felt like muffled thunder. Mr. Vegapunk. Kizaru's face changed slightly when he heard this. Are we going to take action so soon? His voice was so low that it was difficult to even detect the movement of his mouth. Vegapunk is on the world government side on the surface, but marine executives like him are actually very sensitive about Vegapunk's identity. One of the most taboo points is that Vegapunk has connections with the Revolutionary Army. This is a fatal crime. Kizaru had spent some time with Vegapunk on Egghead Island, and he knew this matter clearly. But he was smart enough that he never reported or discussed it to anyone. Of course, this can be regarded as a little thought that he is not easy to detect. After all, everyone's idea of justice is a little different. Dragon breath. Norton muttered. He opened the abyss's huge mouth, and terrifying heat fluctuations gradually formed in his mouth. As the saying goes, when gods fight, mortals suffer. Pirates and marines chose another place to continue fighting. There was constant whistling in the air. Although Norton had the advantage in size, in a small area, Kizaru was unable to resist at all. But the disadvantage of getting bigger is that the speed is extremely slow. The flaw has been exposed again, Kizaru reminded. His body became elemental and he arrived at the dragon's head almost instantly. Flash kick, he yelled. This was a rare serious moment for him. The power of the flash kick was enough to destroy the small island. There were constant sounds of fighting and screaming, broken limbs and broken arms were everywhere, and the ground was dyed red with blood. The two sides continued to engage in tug of war, and the number of dead almost piled up. Luo and Claire were also stopped by the 5 elders. This time there are 3 people from 5 elders, and Marine has one more high-end combat power. But it was enough to turn the tide. Saint Satan was like a meat grinder, killing people from behind. Anyone who saw his true appearance was instantly wiped out by the mysterious power. What a bunch of despicable chess pieces. No, they should be rubbish, Saint Satan said indifferently. On his tall and sharp spider legs were the bodies of a family. Let my child go. I am willing to die for him. You have no right to choose, he pronounced in a cold voice. The mother was disheveled and her left leg was twisted, but she still stood up with difficulty, trying to protect the crying child. But, the next moment, she was shot in the head by Saint Satan. Advertisement only the body was left subconsciously moving forward, and finally collapsed to the ground. Bones and flesh are connected, perhaps feeling the mother's departure. The baby's cries are getting louder and louder, and it already feels hoarse. Satan Shengwen stood up and said, "It's really noisy. You should have lived a good life, but you took refuge in Swain." There was murderous intent in his eyes again. No one on Beehive Island can stop his massacre. Bang! A big hole was blown out of that place. Adams rolled over quickly and held the child tightly with both hands. Damn it, why'd I feel a sticky feeling on my arm? This feeling is like being stuck in a spider web, which is very uncomfortable. Here comes another ant. Satan Saint even just glanced at him, and Adam's arm was blown to pieces with only bones left. He didn't have time to cry out in pain and shouted, "Take this baby out." He used the power of rolling to throw it out. The cry of the baby was easily distinguishable in the chaos, and someone immediately caught the baby that Adams threw. Regardless of the danger behind him, the man raised his legs and ran away. Saint Satan was a little angry that he couldn't even kill a weakling baby, and felt that it was a bit of a loss to his face. The murderous intent in his eyes became more and more serious. A star formation formed under his feet and he teleported behind the man who was escaping with the baby wrapped in his arms. His huge body covered the old man and the young man. "Take it and let the child continue to live for me." Poof! From the top of the head to the soles of the feet, the whole person is fixed on the spider legs like a puppet. Adams covered his eyes and said angrily, "Damn it, if the captain were here, how could he be allowed to be so arrogant?" That's all. Babies are passed from one person to another. But as long as the baby lives, everyone will be fixed on the spider's legs. But even so, there are still people who are willing to trade their lives for their lives. Perhaps everyone is fighting for this tone and is willing to fight these nobles who once ruled them. Then the lives of 3 people were sacrificed, and the scene was tragic and indignant. Saint Satan continued to harvest the lives of these people with his cold heart, and slowly he got tired of it. Just let everyone die. An aura was locked on everyone's neck, and everyone felt a chill down their spines. "Go on, I'm leaving." One person passes the baby to Adams, a corpse with a smile on his face. "Uncle," Adams shouted sadly. At this moment, he was completely despairing. Facing the approaching Saint Satan, he felt that the Almighty God could do nothing more than that. "If you want to die, die quickly," when he was about to commit suicide with the baby in his arms. Suddenly, I noticed that Saint Satan's face changed drastically, and his eyes were full of fear. Just when he was confused, someone from behind tapped him on the shoulder. "Boy, you did a great job, leave it to me next." The voice is very familiar, but the face is even more familiar. Swain finally made it back in time. Chapter 163 Don't Be Afraid. Advertisement in the 2 years since Adams went to sea, apart from seeing Swain's face on the reward notice, this was the first time he had seen him in person. He was a little panicked for a moment. Unable to conceal his excitement, he wanted to get up from the ground, but his injury was so severe that he could not support it with his hands. Seeing this, Swain used seawater to lift him to the side and put him and the baby in the same place. Then he looked at Saint Satan coldly and said, "You stinky spider really knows how to choose the right time. It seems that the lesson I received last time was not enough. This time I took the initiative to come to the door to get beaten, right?" Adams was shocked when he heard this. He had not participated in the last attack on the Holy Land. When he came back, the large army had already set off. He couldn't find out anything after asking afterward. Only today did he learn that Swain had fought against the 5 elders, the highest power in the world. It seems that the other party suffered a loss from him? When he fought against the 5 elders, he could feel the feeling of invincibility and powerlessness on the other side. The thought of his idol's strength actually being able to compete with his opponent makes him feel excited, even more exciting than defeating Saint Satan himself. He endured the pain caused by the injury, comforted the baby, and began to sit up and watch the battle seriously. His eyes were fixed on Swain's movements. I saw a sea gate in front of the opponent, and conquerors suddenly burst out from his body. There was a rumble in the sky and black lightning rained down. Even though he was far away, Adams was frightened when he felt this intoxicating aura, even if the domineering power was not directed at him. Some marine corpses lying on their sides were even chopped into powder by lightning. There was some fear in Saint Seiden's heart, not only because of the loss he suffered last time, but also because Swain was really ridiculously strong. Even among the 4 emperors, he can compete with the Whitebeard of his youth. No matter what Swain thought, if he made himself angry, he would have to pay the price with his life. He will definitely kill Saint Seiden at all costs this time. He walked into the sea gate unhurriedly, and his appearance changed almost instantly. He had blue hair, bare feet, and a peerless figure, and entered the awakening state directly. Damn it, this kid's fruit is really troublesome, Saint Seiden said with some annoyance in his heart. It was very difficult to recover this fruit at first, and like the Nika fruit, it seemed to be alive and escaped from the hands. Missing opportunities step by step, it seems like God is destined to fall into these people. But he doesn't believe in God. If there really is a God, then Lord I Am is the one. Suffer death. He roared angrily. He spit out a black thread from his mouth, which was like liquid. When it touched the corpse on the ground, it immediately turned into blood. Advertisement Swain's nose wrinkled unconsciously, and he smelled an unpleasant smell. The source comes from this black thread. It really stinks like a human being, he said disdainfully. Then he counterattacked. The sea is boundless. A stream of blue water surged out, one was 10 meters high, and another 100 feet wide. If this thread is poisonous, this amount of seawater is enough to completely purify it. This is also true. Although the black silk thread seemed to be unstoppable, it was unable to withstand the immeasurable seawater and was washed away within a moment. Along with the corpses and blood stains on the ground, they were all gone. The remaining seawater did not stop attacking. Instead, it transformed into 2 giant forms, turtle and dragon, under Swain's transformation. Saint Seiden looked as if his liver and gallbladder were about to burst. The turtles and sea dragons were actually covered with domineering energy. What a terrifying amount of energy they had stored. He quickly mobilized the star array and moved himself to other places. Want to run away? It's not that easy, Swain snorted coldly. Command the turtle to step over, and the sea dragon will bite. On the other hand, he expanded his territory to limit Saint Seiden's speed and domineering power to a minimum. Saint Seiden was about to escape when he suddenly felt that there was a force restricting his speed. While he was thinking about it, Swain had already come up to kill him with Gutetsu 2nd generation. In the blink of an eye, he no longer cares about so much. He quickly used his thick and sharp spider legs to resist forcefully. Swain looked at it with more and more fighting intent in his eyes. Conqueror's was wrapped around the sword of Kache's 2nd generation, as if covered with a layer of thick black clothes. Click. Very crisp sound. Saint Seiden's 2 pairs of spider legs were cut off, and he fell to the ground unsteadily. However, the power of the sword did not diminish, splitting the earth into a 100 meters deep crack before it could stop. Does this deserve to be called a god? Swain mocked, it's so vulnerable. He didn't even use his full strength, and the opponent was defeated. The strength is not as good as the former 4 emperors Kaido. You brat, don't be too happy too soon. Saint Seiden stood up in embarrassment and said. Most of his severed leg has grown back. Swain was surprised when he saw this, and thought in his mind, can he be reborn like this? Can he be immortal? Advertisement chapter 164 not an opponent advertisement. Swain was confused. Brother Ming once said that the fruit of surgery can make people achieve immortality when they are awakened. It's just that the user of the fruit itself will die, and the 5 elders have the longest lifespans. Calculating this, I'm afraid there are 5 people with surgical fruit abilities who can extend their lives. However, it is unknown whether this regeneration ability is the 5 elders' own ability or the ability of the surgical fruit. You can't kill me, Saint Seiden said with a heavy breath. It doesn't matter, just kill a few more times. Swain enlarged the area of the domain and allowed it to penetrate into every aspect. No disturbance could escape his eyes. His hands moved quickly, turning the whole world into an ocean in an instant. Saint Seiden's expression changed, and he quickly jumped into the air like a crab. A star formation formed under his feet, causing him to move elsewhere. This kid is really capable of giving people headaches. The theorem of devil fruit is to be afraid of the ocean. No matter how powerful you are, you can't escape. Although Saint Seiden has the ability to regenerate, Swain got a chance when he fell into the ocean. I'm afraid it's really hard to escape. Seeing this, Swain grinned and said, want to run? His thoughts changed, and the seawater between heaven and earth suddenly began to close up quickly like dumplings. Freeze. After closing, Swain shouted loudly, and the seawater froze into an iceberg as hard as steel, blocking Saint Seiden's escape. All this happened in a flash of lightning, and Saint Seiden's huge body hit the iceberg directly. The icebergs immediately began to transform into sharp spears and halberds, attacking from all directions. Saint Seiden thought something was wrong in his heart, and quickly adjusted his direction, and then black flames began to burn on his body. Destroy. The black flame formed into a terrifying spider shape and swallowed up all these ice spears with its claws and fangs. After neutralizing Swain's moves, the black fire spider advanced instead of retreating. Its body grew larger and larger, gradually reaching the size of an iceberg. Prepare to use your body to melt this prison and escape. Swain would not let Saint Seiden escape and shouted, the fish and the dragon are crossing. The sky suddenly brightened, the dark clouds dispersed, and the sunlight shone on the earth, making people's eyes brighten. Next moment, the dark clouds were like a rising tide, forming waves of tornado clouds hovering in the sky. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sound was deafening. Suddenly, I heard a roar among the clouds, like thunder in the clear sky. Then rain fell like a waterfall. A creature that looked like a real dragon descended rapidly from an altitude of 10,000 meters accompanied by lightning and thunder. This is nothing. A sea blue halo of light appeared in the sky when it landed, and its figure became more real every time it passed by. Saint Satan looked up and felt an unprecedented sense of crisis for a moment. He didn't know if he would regenerate under this blow. His pupils were wide and bloodshot. Advertisement. Destroy. Saint Satan roared angrily. This blow used all the strength of his body, and wisps of black flames appeared on his body, like a black spider covered with fluff, with a ferocious face and bared fangs and claws. It's no use. Your strength is far inferior to mine. Swain looked down from a high altitude. His voice was as cold as frost and snow. At this moment, he seemed like a god judging the world. At least that's how Adams felt while watching the show. Come on, he silently encouraged Swain in his heart. Swain reinforced the field again, minimizing all energy fluctuations here and trying not to affect other people. The ichthyosaur crossed the dragon gate again and again, until the last time it crossed, its dragon body became more and more real, and the scales covering its body were lifelike. Saint Satan used himself as fuel to unleash his most powerful killing move. He was confident that if this move continued, Swain would surely die. Go to hell. From now on, the world will lose one of the 4 emperors. Boom. Adam's ears were temporarily deafened, only a buzzing sound could be heard. There is no place to set foot within 1,000 meters, and waves are rising on the sea surface 10,000 meters away, which can capsize all boats passing by. When all the dust fell to the ground, only half of Saint Satan's body had sunk into the ground, his internal organs and bones were scattered on the ground, and his flesh and blood were scattered everywhere. Humph. You don't overestimate your capabilities, Swain said with disdain. If the 4 emperors were really so easy to defeat, I'm afraid there wouldn't be a saying like, the 4 emperors join forces and the world will be turned upside down. Saint Satan used to have a wise face, but today it was for revenge, and he was surprisingly confident that he ended up in this situation. If he wanted to escape from the beginning, Swain would definitely not be able to keep him. Just foolishly falling into his territory. Cough cough cough. Saint Satan coughed as he was dying. Swain has some differences and can still survive. He teleported to Saint Satan, stepped on his face, and tore off his thick beard. His eyes were filled with anger, and he wanted to bite Swain to death. You, click, click, click. Swain used seawater to form several sickle-shaped shackles, locking his upper body. In order to prevent him from regenerating so quickly. Me. Swain looked at him condescendingly. The strength under his feet was inevitably a bit stronger, and Saint Satan, whose devil fruit ability was restricted, was so painful that he broke out in cold sweat. It's a good chance that I'm not dead, and I can still extort some benefits from I am. Saint Satan was shocked when he heard this, and his face suddenly changed. How did you know? I am? He chuckled. Sooner or later I will sit on that throne. Satan Shang just wanted to taunt him, but Swain knocked him out with a punch from the air. Come here. Tie this old immortal up for me. Chapter 165. Escape in embarrassment. Advertisement. Come here. Tie up this old immortal. After fainting, Saint Satan was lying on the ground in a state of embarrassment, like a dead dog. His mouth was slanted and only half of a few teeth were left. Prince Ming. He is really. Someone stood up tremblingly and said. The vivid and strange massacre just now still makes them a little shocked. One look can kill someone, so how can anyone dare to approach him? Fortunately, Swain gave them comfort and said, this man has passed out. He will be detained with the highest level sea tower stone and let Night Owl interrogate him with torture. Night Owl? The visitor asked in confusion. Swain was stunned. Yeshao was an assassination organization that specialized in doing some dirty work for him. It was normal for ordinary soldiers not to know. Then you tie up this old guy first. After saying that, he stepped on Saint Satan's head with his foot, which made the people around him feel frightened, fearing that he would wake up again. Hello. Lord Swain. Adams came to him and shouted, holding on to his injuries and regaining consciousness. Swain heard someone calling his name, so he stopped and turned around to look. It's you. What's the matter? Swain's attitude was very gentle, and he smiled as he looked at the young man in front of him whose face was flushed, and his body was not sure whether he was in pain or shaking with excitement. His courage today is commendable. Although his strength is very weak, it is enough for Swain to remember him. Can you? Swain interrupted. Do you want a reward? He was still as gentle as the spring breeze, restraining all his murderous aura. At this time, he looked like a peerless and independent young master. Adams shook his head. The other person's attitude gave him a lot of courage, and he even thought he was a good friend. Adams sighed in his heart. Is this the demeanor that a king should have? I hope you can accept me as your disciple. He said it in one breath, and then quickly lowered his head, not daring to look at the strong man head on. Because of inferiority, status, wealth, strength. The two are so different that it's hard for people to think they are related. But even so, he still dared to say it loudly. This was his promise to go to sea. Only a few breaths have passed, but Adams feels like the days are like years. At this time, the wind picked up again, blowing on his red and hot face, making him feel a little awake. Just when he thought this was Swain's silent rejection, a voice made him sound like a fairy. Of course, you can, but come back to me after the war. Now I have to go to other places to support you. Thank you. Advertisement. He raised his head excitedly, but Swain had long disappeared. Is this an auditory hallucination? There are no auditory hallucinations, little boy. You have been appreciated by King Ming. You are going to be prosperous. A few veterans who were tying Saint Seiden's hands and feet said enviously. After confirming again and again, Adams couldn't help but look at the sea and sky, clenching his fists tightly. The original intention of this operation was to mobilize all 5 elders, but due to individual reasons, only 3 people including Saint Seiden and Saint Peter came. When Saint Seiden finally dueled with Swain, he could have moved someone in, but was blocked by Swain's domain. Swain himself didn't know this. Swain ordered the Red Earl to stop the 5 elders. Although he was reluctant in every way, he still did it. Unfortunately, by the time Swain arrived, the 2 men had already escaped. The remaining Marine generals and Marine soldiers saw this and exited the battlefield in an orderly manner. If we continue to fight, we will only lose our lives in vain. Cherish life and stay away from war. It surged in fiercely, leaving like a bereaved dog. After this battle, the Swain Pirate Corps' last fear of the world government disappeared completely. A fearless giant truly stood up. 3 days later, Swain called a meeting. The post-war meeting had to be held, and Swain required all officials above the brigade commander to attend. Each person must find at least 2 team errors to correct. If you ask me to say that this time they succeeded in the sneak attack, the biggest mistake was you, Captain. Norton first launched a group attack on Swain. Luo then nodded and said, yes, the big boss disappeared at that time, it's really. He didn't continue talking, he understood everything. Yishao and Blair didn't say much, they were the 2 quietest people. Swain was not angry at being insulted, but just smiled. One of the brigade commanders asked curiously, where did King Ming go? Everyone looked at the questioner with a sharp look, and said with amusement in their hearts, how did this person get in? Don't ask questions if you don't know what you shouldn't ask. Swain was surprised that besides the 4 kings, anyone dared to ask him questions. His expression remained unchanged and he said, I went to my hometown to meet my father. Father? Even Norton was a little surprised. Swain's life experience had been completely wiped out by the world government, and he was completely orphaned. How come a father appears now? Swain smiled at these people and did not continue. Chapter 166 Cell advertisement. After the meeting, Swain dismissed everyone else, leaving only Luo alone. Thank you so much this time. If it weren't for your temporary command, this war would probably have been lost. 5 elders plus 2 marine generals, as well as some powerful lieutenant generals. Taking down an imperial pirate group with this lineup is no problem at all. And it's still a leaderless situation, Luo said with some resentment. The boss is really big-hearted. I hope I will bring a phone bug with me before I go out next time. This time the situation is indeed extremely urgent, and he himself may be held responsible if it fails. If he wins, he won't receive any reward. What status? He is already in the highest position. Weapon? The inseparable scalpel is his most comfortable weapon. Luo adjusted the hat on his head and said with emotion, the boss doesn't have to be like this. I am also a member of this group, so I will naturally try every means to preserve it. In other words, it is already my other home. Swain was quite moved when he heard this and said, okay, I will keep this kindness in my heart. Luo smiled lightly and said nothing more. He has never paid much attention to kindness or anything else, because as a doctor, he has already developed this habit. But what he didn't know was that more than a few decades after his death, his descendants were sentenced to death for a crime of rebellion. Swain's descendants remembered the kindness between their ancestors and pardoned this family, but the prince was permanently expelled. These are all things for future generations. After Swain and Luo separated, they called the Red Earl to his side. The Red Earl was so elusive that Swain couldn't see him at all. The most important thing was that he couldn't control him at all. Except for major events, everything else is completely based on his own personality. HMPH, Brad, I'm not your subordinate, don't yell at me. Okay, senior. After hearing the word, senior, the Red Earl's expression instantly softened, and he looked at Swain with a teachable look. This is also a bug discovered by Swain. The Red Earl likes him to call him senior very much. A senior person can be exchanged for an emperor-level powerhouse, which is not a loss at all. You tried to stop Peter Saint this time. Do you have any useful information? Useful information? What do you mean by his strength? Swain nodded and said, yes, including his fruit ability. Advertisement. It's very powerful, but it's just too disgusting. The most powerful people in the world are monsters. The monster he has here is purely a monster in terms of appearance, and it makes people feel physically uncomfortable. It's a big bug. Big bug. That's really disgusting. Swain kept having doubts in his mind. Why are the 5 elders so strange in their ability to teleport and summon each other? According to Vegapunk's understanding of devil fruit, the fruit also exists consciously. How strong is I am after having no one to support him? Joy Boy was defeated 100 years ago. Joey Boy's combat power can be compared to that of 5th level Luffy, and he can defeat Kaido at a loss. Nowadays, Swain's combat power can definitely defeat Luffy in the 5th gear, but I don't know what chance he has of winning against IM. At present, the world situation has begun to tilt towards the pirates. He has already made plans, and only after he pulls down the powerful people headed by Yim can he truly realize his grand ambitions. Have you interrogated Saint Seiden? I thought that according to the sadistic character of the Red Earl, he must have tortured Saint Satan severely, but he shook his head. No, for a strong man of this size, interrogation is completely useless. Swain agreed upon hearing this, but he would not let him go so easily, and immediately said, "Come with me to meet this old guy." Night Owl's prison has a special territory, which is on the edge of the outer island of Beehive Island. It is backed by the Endless Sea. If you want to escape, you must pass through the center of the island. Generally, there will be strong people in the center of the island, so the criminals detained here have no chance to escape. The prison was built based on the construction of Impel Down City. As for why it is the same as Impel Down City, if it weren't for Luffy, a heaven-defying character, even strong men like the Red Count, Bullet, would have difficulty escaping. You can see how sturdy it is. Anyway, he has absorbed a large number of people from this prison, and the internal structure and accommodation are exactly the same. The only difference is that all the materials here are made of Wano's top seastone technology. As soon as Swain stepped here, he felt a sense of addiction, and he quickly wrapped himself in domineering power. The Red Earl was a little disgusted when he saw this prison, but he followed after frowning. He also wanted to know what Swain could ask from the five elders. Chapter 167 Grudges advertisement. Because it is close to the sea, the air will feel extremely humid, like spider webs clinging to your body. Satan Saint's hands and feet were bound by sea tower stones, and his originally crotched hair was also hanging down. Seastone technology has always been a traditional skill of Wano. The world government is very eager to obtain this technology, but it is a pity that the closed-door policy prevents the outside world from learning it. The top government officials sent a CP spy organization to steal it. Since the new spies did not understand the customs and culture of Wano, they became extremely conspicuous when they first arrived, and were all killed without accident. The seafloor stones on the limbs of Satan Saint are extremely hard. They are obtained by endlessly purifying and repurifying several tons of seafloor stones, smelting and smelting. If in the Sabodi Islands, the sea tower stone cuffing Rayleigh could be broken with domineering force, then the sea tower stone cuffing to Satan Saint could only be broken with the help of magic weapons. And it must be a magical weapon with domineering power. It can make the ability user feel completely powerless and completely separate the ability from the user. Just looking at the damage suffered by Sartan Sanctuary, it is still healing slowly. If it had been in the past, it would have been restored to its original state in the blink of an eye. Tick-tock. I don't know if it was the moist air or his blood, but drops fell on the ground. There are also some poisonous insects appearing on the ground, greedily sucking the liquid on the ground. Saint Satan sensed that someone was coming and shook his unconscious head. This movement inadvertently revealed the aura of the beast, which scared the poisonous insects to the point where they could not move and ran away quickly. Are you feeling comfortable here? Saint Satan suddenly raised his head, bloodshot eyes spread toward his pupils, and stared fiercely at Swain, who asked him. You lowly brat, you know you won't live long. Swain smiled contemptuously and said, You are so noble, why would you still be caught in a cell by a lowly human being like me, like a... He paused, touched his chin and pretended to think. I remember like a dead dog. The Red Earl stood beside him and couldn't help but laugh as he listened to Swain's taunts. He thought that this kid was only very strong because of his strength, but he didn't expect that his words could be so offensive. You... Saint Satan's hair instantly stood upright in anger. Swain couldn't stand his appearance, so he formed a small palm in the air and gave him 2 slaps. The Red Earl looked at this sudden scene and was speechless. He thought to himself, fortunately, I didn't continue to fight against this kid in the first place, otherwise I might be the one being imprisoned here. He had no confidence that he could escape from Swain's hands when he was nearly exhausted. What's more, this is unrealistic. Saint Satan was also a little confused, and then he became more and more angry. He wanted to kill Swain with his eyes. As the aloof 5 elders, the most powerful celestial dragon elder in the world, he is inferior to one person and superior to tens of thousands of people, but today he was slapped in the face by pirates. This humiliation eroded his heart more than the defeat. He was like a lion majesty at this time, looking at Swain and saying, You must die. Swain felt a gust of wind blowing, and he didn't know if Saint Satan's curse had taken effect. He smiled faintly and said, Whether I will die or not is still unknown, but I know you will definitely die. Then he stopped talking nonsense and asked straight to the point. What secret does I am have? What exactly do you, the world government, want to do by suppressing a blank 800 years of history? I am. This is the second time Swain mentioned it in front of Saint Satan. The first time he mentioned it was during the sneak attack on the Holy Land. How do you know Lord I am? Sartan's holy eyes revealed surprise. If it was a hallucination the first time, then Swain must have known something when he mentioned it this time. He couldn't understand why Swain, who became famous at a young age, knew so many hidden things. Roger, Rayleigh, Golden Lion, Red Hair. It is understandable that these long-established kings know these obscure things, because they must have understood the real history, and even said they knew it completely. But he knew everything about Swain's movements in the past few years, and he didn't have time to understand the historical text. Advertisement unless he asked Whitebeard or anyone else who knew these things. But if you really asked other people, why would you come and ask yourself in person? All kinds of doubts made Saint Satan become more and more confused about the young strong man in front of him, as if a fog shrouded him. Saint Satan had just focused his attention on Swain and did not notice that there was another person beside him. Glancing over inadvertently, his eyes were full of surprise. Leadfield? When the Red Count saw Saint Satan's roll call, he showed an evil smile and said, It's me, the noble saint of Satan. When Swain heard the Red Earl speak, he immediately looked back at him in surprise, his eyes seeming to ask, "Do you know each other?" He suddenly became alert in his heart, and he took half a step back, ready to take action at any time. When the Red Earl saw this, he was dissatisfied and said, "You brat, he and I are mortal enemies." Dead enemy. Now it was Swain's turn to wonder, but he was still wary. The Red Earl had no choice but to narrate slowly. After listening to this, Swain understood why the two of them had become mortal enemies. This starts from 50 years ago. At that time, the Red Earl was still a young boy living in a comfortable village. He had been withdrawn since he was a child, and he even had nothing to say to his parents. But when he was 12 years old, he met a girl who changed his destiny. The girl was good at singing, and the beautiful singing voice made the Red Count like it very much. He often secretly went out to play with the girl. They sang and talked together on the grass, in the jungle, and beside the dandelions. When he was 15 years old, he first fell in love and confessed his love to the girl, and the two became lovers from then on. Unfortunately, the good times did not last long. When he was 16, a group of bandits in the name of pirates entered the village, and they only captured girls. The Red Earl's sweetheart was captured like this, and he went to sea to look for her. About 10 years later, when he was 26 years old, he was already a world-famous pirate. But being alone also made his character more withdrawn and unwilling to keep company with others. On his 26th birthday, he got the girl's news and rushed there non-stop. With the mood of his youth, he also specially prepared a bouquet of roses to give to the girl. But what he saw was a cold corpse, disheveled in the house, and a dozen female corpses were thrown here at the same time. He buried her next to dandelions, looking lonely in the wind. Later, he learned that all this was a secret experiment of the world government, and girls were needed as test subjects. When he found out, he was furious. His beloved woman was treated like this, and he still can't forget the horrified look in his eyes when he died. Then, the Red Earl began to hunt down world government spies, constantly looking for the person behind the scenes, and finally let him know that the leading figure in all this, the person who killed the girl, was named Jago Lucia Satan. Scientists and 5 elders. A person with a very high status and power over the world. But he had no fear and relied on his strong strength to reach the Holy Land and fight against Saint Satan. However, when attacking the Holy Land, strong men soon came to support them. In the end, he was defeated and fled under the siege of the Knights of God and the generals. This is also the grudge between the Red Earl and Saint Satan. Although he no longer cares about what happened in the past, he will no longer risk his life for love to provoke powerful enemies. However, some people dare to touch his women, and they feel that they have been disrespected. Anyway, the tie is settled. Chapter 168. No results. Advertisement. Saint Satan felt a chill in his heart when he heard this title. Isn't it full of irony that a god becomes a prisoner? They all deserve to die? You really look like a lion majesty now, not like a smelly spider, the Red Earl retorted. When a tiger falls in Pingyang, it can be deceived for a while. They are already mortal enemies anyway. Saint Satan knew that one mouth could not speak more than 2 words, so he simply lowered his head and kept silent. Just torture, Swain ordered. Then there were 2 soldiers wearing steel and copper armor, holding soldering irons, fine needles, a variety of torture tools. These are made of seafloor stone and are designed to treat people with various abilities. Especially people like Saint Satan who have the ability to regenerate. The members of the Night Owl organization are all powerful and ruthless people, and only a more ruthless person like the Red Earl can intimidate these people. The 2 Night Owl members opened the cell door, and with a clang, they stepped forward cautiously. It seems that he has suffered a loss in this area before, and the torture instruments were used on him without making a sound. Swain looked at this scene with cold eyes. He did not think that torturing the devil was something that harmed his conscience. There is reincarnation in the way of heaven, and he deserves all this. The red-hot iron was imprinted on his body, instantly scorching a large area, and the thin needle pricked between his fingercaps, and it was as if he didn't feel all the inhuman torture. Swain knew that he should use his domineering power to block the pain. It is similar to cutting off a person's pain-sensing nerves. No matter how painful it is, you will not feel pain. Bring some blood here, Red Earl ordered one of them. The man found a torture instrument that could hold it and was preparing to catch the dripping blood. Saint Satan, who had been motionless just now, instantly became furious when he heard that his blood was being taken, as if his bottom line had been touched. You be asterisk 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 d. Even lowly humans deserve to drink my blood. He kept cursing, and at first Swain thought he was just venting his anger, but gradually he began to feel that something was wrong. No, there's something wrong with the blood on his body. Looking at Saint Satan's expression again, he was surprisingly frightened. Suddenly, a terrifying conqueror tilted out, as if it was going to devour people. Swain also quickly released his domineering energy to protect the 2 soldiers. Sizzle. When the dominators collided, the lightning burst out and cracked the ground. HMPH. Swain snorted coldly. The opponent's domineering force was immediately shattered, and no effective offensive could be formed. Go, he said to the Red Earl. The latter smiled and took half a bowl of blood directly. Let me taste how this tastes. If you dare, Lord I Am will kill you, Redfield. Haha, then I'll have to wait patiently. Swain didn't care when he saw the Red Earl, but asked, aren't you afraid that this blood will have other effects? The Red Earl naturally knew what Swain was implying, and smiled lightly. If you can really die, that would be a wonderful thing. Swain didn't understand his perverted behavior, but respected it. Advertisement. The Red Earl raised his cup and finished it in one gulp. He savored the aftertaste slowly. It's so delicious. I feel a new energy growing in my body. This feeling is so wonderful. Then he looked at Saint Satan with longing eyes and said, this is really a treasure. Swain was a little impatient and quickly interrupted the Red Earl's talk and asked, what is going on? Although practice brings true knowledge, he has no hobby of drinking blood. There is a very powerful vitality in his blood, which is the so-called regeneration, right? Is there regeneration in blood? Swain asked in surprise. Could it be the result of Vegapunk's research? But on second thought, he rejected the idea because Vegapunk didn't even live to live 100 years. These old guys have a lifespan of at least 100 years. The key is that they don't show any signs of aging at all, at least in their skin and eyeballs, they look like young people. I seem to remember your fruit. As long as there is blood, you can stay young forever. The bat fruit eaten by the Red Earl can stay young forever as long as it sucks blood. Eternal youth is not eternal life. There will be a day when life ends, the Red Earl explained. Eternal life is just a dream. No one knows whether there are people who have eternal life. Because no one can escape from this curse. Swain nodded suddenly. Since he couldn't live forever in this way, there was only one way. The fruits of surgery, and you must be a 5th level Esper to do it. Not to mention that the Esper must awaken. Just being able to find the next host of the fruit after the death of the previous host is a big project. No less than finding a needle in a haystack. Coupled with the changes and accidents along the way, it can be imagined that only the world government can maintain this kind of thing. What just happened to be clever was that it was these 5 people who controlled the government. It is not unreasonable to sell it for 5 billion berries in the market. After thinking about the reason, Swain said to the Red Earl, it's probably the fruit of the surgery. Fruit of surgery? No wonder it has the ability to regenerate. Wait a minute, isn't your boat doctor? Yeah, but I won't choose eternal life. Then he added, I'll probably get tired of living. Tired of living? The Red Earl looked at Swain, who was talking to him with a serious face, and felt that he was joking with him. Who doesn't want to live forever? Not to mention that Swain, as one of the emperors of this sea, has as much power in S*X as he wants. But he didn't want to do that, it was too boring. It seems that I have to give you the last farewell, said the Red Earl. Swain heard his joke and said, maybe, then I hope you won't pick up my grave and just suck my blood. You brat, this isn't funny. I'm not that kind of person. Swain did not answer his words, but turned around and left. Let's go. Even if we torture for 3 days and 3 nights, there will be no results. We might as well find the answer ourselves. The Red Earl's expression darkened when he heard this, and said, the soldiers will come to block it and the water will come to cover it. Even if I comes to settle accounts, the first person to find him will definitely be Swain. If the sky falls, there will be tall people watching. Chapter 169 Missing Advertisement. Saint Satan's mouth is not generally tough. After interrogating for a whole night, there was still no useful information. The cage was entirely made of the highest purity seafloor stone, and he was not afraid of anyone being able to find it through any signal. Just like that, a month flew by. The other 5 elders on the Red Earth continent also began to realize that something was wrong. Have you made contact? No, I specially sent CP0 to Danto Island to look for him, but he was nowhere to be found there. That's really strange, he can't be missing, right? That's possible. St. Peter replied. Others didn't find the joke funny. Even the 5-pointed star array can't summon him at all, Nassau Lang said. He usually has a good relationship with Saint Satan, so he naturally cares more about this old friend. But every time he looked for news about him, he was dissatisfied and his brows knitted together. Don't worry about him, he won't die. Peter Saint always maintained an indifferent expression. Even if his companion dies, it doesn't seem to arouse his sympathy. It was a mistake to capture Swain. He is even more troublesome than Whitebeard, and any of his strong men can stop him alone. Saint Nassauling slammed his sword on the ground and complained on the spot. Saint Peter knew that he was hinting at his foolishness in proposing this plan. If you are wrong, but not everyone will admit their mistakes. This matter was approved by the Lord. Are you denying the Lord's mistake? Saint Pitt responded in a sharp voice. As long as you move out of no matter how wrong things are, they can only be right. God is beyond doubt, otherwise, it is blasphemy and you will be punished forever. Really? No matter how good the reason was, Saint Nisholong turned his head to the side in anger after hearing that it was The remaining 5 elders saw that the atmosphere was not right, so they could only temporarily come out to smooth things over. No one could have imagined that a Redfield would appear halfway, Saint Wetcherly said in a deep voice. This man is even more powerful than when he was young. He was as capable as Whitebeard and Roger when he was young. This result is acceptable. Saint Moshe answered, his voice like a sheep. The strongest among the 5 elders is Peter Saint, who also has a high status among the 5. On the battlefield that day, he fought against Blair and Luo, one of the 4 kings. At this time, Luo had already awakened and became proficient in using domineering energy. Not to mention Blair, he is even stronger than the general. The 2 of them are also think tank players, and Luo assists Blair in attacking, and they work together perfectly. Advertisement. Even with this kind of fighting power, Saint Pitt can even gain the upper hand. Saint Wuchuli and Saint Moshe did not participate in this matter because they had to stay to preside over Pangu City and deal with the warring states period. 2 generals and dozens of lieutenant generals were temporarily transferred without fleet admiral's approval. It was even said that he was kept in the dark by design. Because with his character, he would never let these people leave without authorization, even with the orders of the 5 elders. But the situation on the battlefield was changing rapidly. Peter Saint, who had the upper hand one moment, was under great pressure the next moment. Because he saw a strong man whom he had not seen for a long time, a person who had been forgotten by the world for so long, Gu Gao Jihong. He never expected that Redfield would join Swain's team. The rumors about his withdrawn character seemed to him to be lies. The two fought against each other very quickly, and they were evenly matched in terms of strength. The battle dragged on until Swain returned, and they had to retreat in disgrace. Saint Pitt felt bored when he thought about the outcome of this battle, although IM didn't say much after he found out. But it made Saint Pitt extremely remorseful and guilty. Now he wanted to kill Swain immediately and take his head to IM to plead guilty. Let's think about how to contain Swain's power, Peter Saint said with a gloomy face. If this continues, sooner or later he will become the first of the 4 emperors. Anyway, the other 3 will not obey his orders, so we don't have to worry about this, Saint Nasushiro said. When Saint Pitt heard this, he sneered and said, if you don't obey, you will conquer directly. It's really ridiculous. Does that kid have such courage? Saint Pitt was a little impatient and said with anger in his eyes, before he attacked the Holy Land, didn't you also say that no one had the courage to take a step forward? You have to take precautions for everything. I'm not waiting for an accident to happen to you, idiot. What did you say? Saint Nashu Lang said angrily. That's enough. If this continues, Master IM will sooner or later replace us when he finds out, Saint Wuchuli advised loudly. The two stopped arguing and just looked at each other coldly. Beehive Island. The weather is sunny today and the temperature is suitable. Seagulls are flying in flocks, children's joyful sounds are heard one after another on the beach, and from time to time, beating sounds can be heard. A tower as high as 100 feet high was built on Beehive Island, which was originally intended to be a watchtower, used to monitor foreign enemies in the 3 islands. However, in this marine attack, the role of this tower was not reflected, so it was strengthened and raised higher. Swain also specially set up the official position of lookout. At the same time, he used the power of the ocean to greatly change the velocity of the surrounding thousands of miles, drifting the 3 islands to other directions. This is an undoubted approach. Who knows whether world government will come back again? Or rather like the kingdom of Logia that was supposed to be destroyed. Chapter 170 Blackbeard's actions advertisement. In the original plot, the mysterious beams of the 16 paths that destroyed the kingdom of Logia were not yet known whether they were fruit abilities or human weapons. If it were the fruit's ability, it would be really terrifying. Can a country be destroyed with just a single finger? But Swain is more inclined to the latter. It is a weapon. The huge straw hat stranded deep in the Holy Land Garden is most likely the starting device. Otherwise, it is the base of the Revolutionary Army and the home of the 4 emperors. As long as there are coordinates, can it be destroyed in a snap? Do you still need to set up generals and recruit Shichibukai to fight? It seems impossible when you think about it. The effort involved is extraordinary. In other words, there is another saying, that is, 4 emperors can overthrow the world by joining forces. Once the pirates know that world government is so destructive, they will definitely stick together for warmth. As the 4 emperors at the pinnacle of pirates, we must bear the brunt and stand together. But everything is still confusing. Swain is the youngest and most outstanding of these 4 emperors. World government. No, I should say I am. You have to keep an eye on him. Move one hair and move the whole body. This feeling has been vividly reflected in Swain. The last time he was attacked by the world government was a case. Hey, he sighed softly. I originally thought that after becoming the 4 emperors, I should live a relaxed life, but I didn't expect that the higher I am, the more worried I become. Do you always have companions? Do you have subordinates? Do you have territory? Once you make a mistake, one of them can cost you dearly. He sat on the chair and fell asleep thinking about it. Swain's room faces north and south, and it takes dozens of minutes to walk between the office and the lobby. There is also a waiting room and dance hall on the way. But after learning the lesson from last time, all entertainment venues such as dance halls were shut down. Without him, die in peace and happiness. He still understands this truth. With this little money, it is better to build more training grounds. Blue blue blue. The phone bug started ringing gradually. There was no phone bug where Swain was sleeping. This was in the office. The guard heard the sound and came to Swain with the phone in hand, shouting twice. Mingwang, Mingwang. Swain was still asleep. He would definitely not dare to answer the phone. If he heard something he shouldn't have heard, he would be beheaded. Just when the guard was at a loss, Blair walked in. What are you doing? The guard immediately turned around, saluted, and said, King Nan, I have answered Emperor Ming's call. Telephone. He picked it up. Advertisement. The guard originally wanted to remind him that this was against the rules, but then he thought about the fact that people at the king's level have deep trust. Then he stepped back and stood aside. This is the headquarters of the Swain pirates. Oh, isn't it Swain's bratty voice? The phone rang, a woman's voice with a thick voice. Don't worry, Mom. I am Charlotte Blair from the Big Mom Pirates, and you must be the famous Southern King Blair. It's me. Blair was not happy when he heard this, but his tone remained cold. He remembered that the Swain pirates and the Big Mom pirates had nothing to do with each other. You can tell him just from his voice. It's obvious that the other party has put in a lot of effort. If you go to the Three Treasures Hall for nothing, something must have happened right now to make them call. Hancock, your captain's woman, is likely to be attacked by Blackbeard in a few days. Why tell us? Blair didn't say anything grateful. Instead, the voice was full of questions. There is no free lunch in the world. Moreover, the most important point is that Andy and Swain have no interest relationship at all. Telling you this news for no reason will arouse great suspicion. Of course I'm afraid that the loving couple will be tarnished. It would be really regrettable if that happened. Bree's voice was extremely thin, and it didn't sound like she was helping others. I understand. Then hung up the phone. After Bree heard the beeping sound, she immediately became furious. What the hell? Damn it, I told him so kindly that he has such an attitude. Katakuri said. As long as it doesn't delay Mom's plan. After Blair hung up the phone, he did not wake Swain immediately, but waited for him to wake up. Hancock. He had heard from his subordinates that she was known as the Pirate Empress because of her stunning appearance. His physical strength is unparalleled, and anyone who can achieve the position of Shichibukai is not a good person. Although I don't know how I got along with the captain, it's not easy to discuss this kind of thing. Dusk hour. Swain just woke up, and this sleep made him a little dizzy, as if he was drunk. How did you come? Blair sat on the sofa to calm down. There's news from Big Mom that the Pirate Empress Hancock is likely to be attacked by Blackbeard. Hancock? Then Swain said angrily. Blackbeard eats a bear's heart and a leopard is so brave. When Blair saw the captain's reaction, he didn't expect it to be so intense. It seemed like falling in love was not easy. Chapter 171. Rude Advertisement 9 Snake Island. Captain, have we gone too far? Lafayette cried like a monkey. No, I must get the fruit of the Empress, Blackbeard said decisively. But, she is the woman of 4 Emperor Swain, Lafayette continued to persuade. The implication is already obvious. They cannot afford to offend Swain, who is at the height of his power at this stage. Fanoka wiped his beloved shotgun with a handkerchief, and said in a nonchalant tone, Okay, the captain has made his decision, we just need to do our job well as a crew. But, Blackbeard interrupted impatiently. I know what you mean, but there are too many strong people competing for one piece. If we don't improve our combat power, we will fall behind this era. At that time, if the captain doesn't want to use that woman, let me experience it once. That woman has a face that will bring disaster to the country and the people. Shiryu held a cigar in his mouth, the smoke covering his lustful eyes. Gia ha 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 ha, Blackbeard laughed, I don't care. Different from the original plot, at this time, after Blackbeard failed to snatch Whitebeard's shock fruit, he did not conquer Katarina Deppen. There are only 7 crew members including Lafayette, Vanoka, Shiryu, Poison Q, Bad Wolf, Basque Shot and Badgers. These people get together either because they share the same odor or because they are ambitious. Nearly a year has passed since the war on top. Blackbeard took advantage of the convenience of the dark fruit to obtain suitable devil fruit for them. These people are also willing to work hard with Blackbeard. In just 1 year, they went from being unknown pirates to becoming the 5th emperor, comparable to the 4 emperors. That's right, the 5th emperor. The bounty on his head reached a staggering 3 billion belly. The entire crew of their ship was ruthless, and they would not show any mercy even to civilians, and they would usually kill them all. Therefore, they are also called the Devil Pirates. There were several naked female corpses beside them. Their clothes had been torn apart before they were alive. Their eyes were filled with shock and anger. They had been greatly humiliated before they died. Blackbeard looked at the snake-shaped pirate flag on the island, wondering what he was thinking. Since Jushi Island is located in a windless zone, the weather in July is very comfortable. Hancock was lying on the back of the snake, and the sunlight fell on his face, like a crystal-clear porcelain doll, and the light could be seen from her face. Hancock, why did you fall asleep again? Don't listen, it's just my mother-in-law. She is the only one on this island who can directly call Fang by her first name. A little old woman. I can do whatever I want, I don't need you to teach me, Hancock said, holding his hand tightly. She was a little angry when she got up, and she expelled everyone who disturbed her sleep. Advertisement, Swain called you just now, but I came to answer it. Hancock stood up immediately, his tall figure making his clothes a little too small. A-hole. How could you answer my phone call without permission? Grandma Z was a little surprised and said, Isn't it me who handles it every time? She was also quite speechless about Hancock's love affair, Swain said. Are you saying that you miss your slave family? Invite me to Honeycomb Island to sit there? She held her cheeks in her hands and said in an infatuated way. No, he told us to be vigilant recently. Blackbeard may attack 9 Snakes Island, Grandma Z said in a solemn tone. Blackbeard? She held her head and thought for a moment. When Grandma Z saw this, she reminded him, it's the black-bearded Teach who is called the 5th Emperor of the New World. Snort, he is no match for my husband. Then he stopped playing around and said seriously, let all the sisters be vigilant and raise the alarm immediately if they see a suspicious person approaching. When Grandma Z was about to go down to deliver the order, the alarm sounded throughout the island. This was specially set up by the previous Empress to prevent intruders. It hasn't sounded for many years, but I didn't expect it to work this time. Grandma Z and Hancock looked at each other and saw surprise in each other's eyes. I didn't expect Blackbeard to come so quickly. She immediately sat on the giant python and rushed to the place where the alarm sounded. Who are you? Asked a girl wearing leopard skin with her breasts exposed. Although she looked to be only a teenager, she held a spear in her hand and had an extraordinarily determined look in her eyes. What an interesting island. They are all women, even warriors, Shiryu said softly. Due to Swain's changed trajectory, he did not eat the invisibility fruit. Fan Oka teleported behind her and aimed his spear at the back of his head. Think about your words or your head will explode the next moment. But when Leopard Girl saw this battle, instead of being afraid, she stared at Blackbeard with anger on her face. She is determined to become the bravest warrior on this island, so naturally she will not be afraid. Jia ha ha ha. Put down your weapons, we are teachers of benevolence and righteousness, Blackbeard laughed arrogantly. He thinks he's funny, but some people don't get what he wants. A clear and cold voice said, Really? You treat my subordinates like this? Is this what you call benevolence and righteousness? Chapter 172 Losing Advertisement. Jia ha ha ha. Blackbeard did not hide his arrogance at all. They were the ones who made the first move, but we were very polite. HMPH. So eloquent. If you hadn't broken into the island, how could our sisters take action? At this time, Hancock's two sisters, Sonda and Mary, said aggressively. Grandma Z also arrived. Because she was shorter, she rode a python and came a little later. When she saw that the intruder turned out to be Blackbeard, her expression changed drastically. Before anyone noticed her presence, she quietly exited and turned towards the contact station in the palace. The corpses lying on the ground are the best proof. You don't mean to say more. I won't tolerate you scumbags hurting my sisters. Hancock's face turned red with anger, and his eyes were burning with anger. Captive's arrows. She kissed her fingers, pulled out the bowstring with her white onion-like fingers, and shot countless pink arrows. Blackbeard's expression changed. He didn't expect the other party to strike so cleanly, and he quickly greeted. Get out of the range of these arrows quickly, don't get hit. Haha. What's so powerful about the girl's skin? It's up to me. The evil wolf relied on his strong physical skills, and his weapons covered his hands, and he hit a few punches to smash the arrows. But his body was huge, and he had no time to dodge when the arrow hit his leg. His thigh instantly turned into stone. He was shocked and said, What's going on? The domineering energy flowing in his body was actually unable to break through the seal of the fruit's ability. Whoosh whoosh. Then several more arrows hit his limbs, and he was almost reduced to a stone man in an instant. How rude, fragrant feet. Hancock moved very quickly, and while Blackbeard was dodging, he had already incapacitated one of his companions. This kick still has domineering energy attached to it. If it were kicked up, it would probably turn into rubble. Fan Oka remained calm in the face of danger, flicked his finger, and fired a bullet in an open space. Transfer. Whoosh. The wolf that turned into stone instantly moved to the place where the bullet was fired. Fan Oka stood up and exclaimed, What a cruel woman. He is a user with the teleportation fruit ability, and can teleport himself or his companions to the desired place. If it hadn't been like this, the powerful man on the 6th floor of the city might have fallen under this woman's legs just now. Goo goo haha. Poison Q threw an apple. The two sisters, Nathanda and Mary, were transformed into strong men, both in voice and appearance. Sister, Mary shouted. She was almost about to pounce, and Hancock subconsciously wanted to kick her away. I'm Mary. Kiss gun. Hancock punched Mary and Thonda. Others were a little confused. They could tell it was Mary and the others, right? Advertisement. How can you shoot at your own people? In less than 2 breaths, they were reduced to stone figures, standing there in a daze, like 2 ingenious handicrafts. At this time, Q high-fived and said, It's really awesome. You can actually seal my poison. He was chewing the poisonous apple in his mouth, and his face suddenly turned algae green. Only then did everyone come to their senses and realize that this was what happened. There was no pride on Hancock's face, and he didn't think it was a good thing to be praised like this. She unpetrified the two Marys. Sister. Although Mary was a little tough, she was also a little frightened at this time. Get behind me, Hancock said with a heavy expression. She can only protect her closest relatives. Blackbeard came out in full force this time, and it was simply not something they could handle. A sting. Hancock's back was bleeding and he was attacked by a sneak attack. It's really full of flaws, Shiryu said holding the blade from behind. A-hole. How dare you bully my sister, Sonia yelled angrily. She threw the python's tail towards Shiryu. The python's tail had rippled scales, like the cold light of a sword. Shiryu didn't even try to hide, his palms became hardened and he snorted coldly. You don't overestimate your own capabilities. Hold it in your bare hands. Then the arm muscles expanded, throwing Sonia's huge body out, like a thicker rope, and hit the ground heavily. The blood on Hancock's back had stained the ground red, and Shiryu's stab in the back seriously injured her. The strength of the body feels like it is about to be drained out, and a sense of powerlessness arises spontaneously. Don't, she muttered. She wanted to get up again and save Sonia, but her body gradually began to lose control. He bit his lower lip suddenly and tried to wake himself up. Big fragrant feet. Her long legs were like bamboo shadows blown by the wind, slender and powerful as she ran towards Shiryu. I can't let you pass. Lafayette raised his hat and said with an evil smile on his face. Let me die. Lafayette pulled out the long sword from the gift stick and said, the clown is reincarnated. Crimson rose petals appear all over Lafayette, and a clown swaps his body double with him. Pung. 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 The clown stand-in suddenly transformed at Hancock's feet, turning into blood mist and splattering on the ground. He, I'm going to scratch your little face. When Hancock heard this, he didn't know how he suddenly came to him. He had a very strange ability. I saw that Lafayette's sword was already close to his face, and it was going to destroy her stunning appearance in the next moment. Chapter 173 coming to help advertisement. Lafayette's ceremonial sword was already close to her face, and it would destroy her stunning appearance in the next moment. Hancock wanted to turn around and dodge, but from what he saw that his position had been locked by Shiryu. Either die or be disfigured. In the flash of lightning, she had no time to think. He could only scream instinctively and clenched his fists tightly at his shoulders. She suddenly thought of Swain and didn't understand that after the latter became the four emperors, he never came to pick her up to get married. She wanted to ask clearly, this was a thorn in her heart. It's a pity that I didn't have a chance to ask. Suddenly, a spear shot from a distance at high speed. So fast that it is difficult to see clearly with the naked eye. Be careful, Van Oka warned. He quickly used his ability to move Lafayette away. As a sniper, his knowledge was very powerful. Really, where Lafayette originally stood, a nearly 2-meter-long spear appeared. It sank directly into the ground, leaving a deep black hole, which was enough to show that if Van Oka hadn't been there just now, his head would have been shot directly through. Blackbeard also suddenly became alert, and immediately released the dark flames. The dark energy of the dark fruit rolled on the ground, corroding everything. Cold sweat broke out on his face, thinking that the other party's strength must be pretty good. But definitely not Swain. If it was Swain, the blow just now might have killed him as well. After all, that man was the man who had sneak attacked Maurizio and escaped unscathed. I saw a figure running very fast in the distance. Hancock took this opportunity to escape quickly, retreating to the distance and stepping on the body of the giant python. She couldn't help but stop and look back, wondering who was going to help her. The man was extremely fast and moved in front of them in a few breaths. Don't bully a woman, Raglan said with a smile on his lips. But he could still hear the heavy breathing in his tone, and it seemed that he had rushed all the way here. How could it be you? What a rare visitor, Blackbeard GG said with a smile. When he captured Ace and became Shichibukai, he had an encounter with him. At that time, Dolog and Tyrant Bear were discussing something together. He even secretly invited Raglan to join the gang, but the other party directly refused. You came today with the intention of becoming my subordinate? He said arrogantly. Taking action against him already meant standing on the opposite side, but he still wanted to invite the other party. Nothing else. Wherever a strong man goes, he will be admired by all the stars. Raglan's bounty is as high as 1 billion, and his strength is comparable to Kaido's, 3 major disasters, in the former 4 emperors. Advertisement. Raglan calmed down for a while and then said, No, I'm here to help this lady escape from your clutches. Blackbeard laughed loudly when he heard this. Do you know whose woman she is? Upon hearing this, Raglan thought to himself, would it be ******** D, Swain? Lousy was called over to be a helper even on vacation, and his opponent was Blackbeard of the 5 emperors. That's right, he Shichibukai lived a prosperous life, and his strength was almost invincible in the first half of the Grand Line. But he was frightened by Swain's words. He remembered that the latter said in a stern tone, go and help Hancock fight off Blackbeard. If she is harmed in any way, you and Blackbeard will die. Then, I heard the phone beeping. The other person barely cares whether he agrees or not, but I am a Shichibukai too. But he had no choice. On the one hand, he was under the pressure of the 4 emperors, and on the other hand, he had to bite the bullet and provoke Blackbeard. But his coming here has already proved which answer he chose. Raglan pretended not to understand. Isn't it normal for Shichibukai to support Shichibukai? Then he gestured to Hancock with his eyes. She also nodded kindly. She had no relationship with Raglan at all. It was not easy to come to the rescue. At least she was grateful in her heart. Blackbeard's eyes gradually turned cold. Since he is an enemy, he should strike hard. Without him speaking, Van Oka knew to move him behind Raglan. A pitch-black mist emerged from his body, like a god of night. Gia ha ha ha. Blackbeard laughed, and the black mist became denser and denser, gradually engulfing the surrounding forests and buildings. Raglan approached Hancock and whispered, get out of here quickly, Lord Swain doesn't want you to get hurt. Hancock nodded and left without hesitation. She is indeed worried about me. She felt a little happy in her heart, but she couldn't show it on her face like usual at the moment. Raglan looked at Hancock, who was already injured, and felt extremely worried. Take these things silently, hoping to alleviate the adult's anger later. At least you won't kill him, right? As long as Hancock's conscience remains intact, he will definitely put in a nice word for him. Thinking of this, he felt that he was really too smart. Pay for your stupid behavior. Dark water. Raglan's eyes were solemn and he shouted. Snow. Sabodi Islands. Sha Li lit a cigarette for Rayleigh and said softly, it seems that we are going to trouble you again. She held the cigarette in one hand and held her chin in the other hand, looking at Rayleigh, who had white hair. Alas, I didn't expect this little girl to be watched by Blackbeard. Rayleigh Kaido. He refused Sha Li's cigarette, got up and left, preparing to go to 9 Snake Island. Chapter 174 Room Advertisement, Snow, Raglan roared angrily. He didn't know what Blackbeard's strength was, but he had no choice but to bite the bullet. Swish. Raglan's ability belongs to the Paramecia space type. Blackbeard's group suddenly felt their eyes go dark, and when they reappeared, they had been divided into various areas. What's going on? Blackbeard asked with confusion. He was now in a closed space, which was pitch black, and he couldn't see his fingers. However, he did not feel afraid. The black mist formed by the dark water had a strong devouring effect. At this moment, it was as greedy as an ant, eating away everything around it. The moment Raglan activated his ability, his whole body was in a tense state, as if he would explode the next moment. In the past, his ability was almost at its limit just by trapping a strong person like Shichibukai. For example, the last time he met a bear, he fought against it, but in the end he was defeated miserably. Bear's ability is actually one that restrains him to a certain extent. His ability is used for control. The bear's meatball fruit can send itself out of the control range. Moreover, there are limitations to framing the enemy, and they must be relatively weak. If you want to get 1,000 marines or miscellaneous fish pirates, that's no problem, but if a team member like Blackbeard is framed at the same time and has good strength, he will be easily harmed. He can't control so much. Fan Oka was also in the controlled space at this time. He was in a magnificent palace. Is this a projection? He asked, raising his glasses on his left eye. His echo soon came from the closed space, and it stopped after 4 or 5 blasts. It's really annoying. My voice isn't loud, right? He raised the shotgun and held it between his arms. Boom. A small plume of white smoke came out of the muzzle of the gun, but the mirror where the bullet was shot shattered with the sound. Tap tap tap. The sound of rapid footsteps was like the galloping of thousands of horses, making the palace tremble. The ceiling overhead was crumbling. Fan Oka immediately used his ability to teleport to a higher place and stood in a relatively safe position where he could place his gun. Suddenly, an orderly row of soldiers walked in, and Fan Oka's eyes looked solemn after seeing them. Skeleton soldiers wearing golden armor, holding a shield in their left hand and a spear in their right hand, were arranging a military formation to confront him. There is not much space here, and the two sides can just miss each other by 100 meters. Walking in front of the soldiers was a taller skeleton. Advertisement. I saw its mouth moving up and down, and although it had no vocal tract, it could make sounds. You can kill yourself, don't waste my energy. This is Raglan controlling the skull leader to talk to Fan Oka, but from the surprised expression on the other side, it can be seen that he doesn't know it is him yet. Fan Oka smiled softly and said, it's really interesting. Raglan may need to be replaced by someone with this ability. He is also a space attribute user, so he naturally knows how terrifying this ability is. If the user of the gate fruit hadn't been found, he would have definitely asked Blackbeard to get it too. Raglan, who was in the main control room, immediately became alert when he heard this. I secretly thought something was wrong. I was actually thinking about my ability. Then he became a little angry and said through the skull leader's mouth, then you must have this strength. Fan Oka pointed his gun at the withered skull and said contemptuously, then let's give it a try. Bang, 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 3 shots came out, as fast as thunder and lightning. The skull was formed by his thoughts, and he was not afraid of bullets or anything like that. He held a bone spear in one hand and rushed forward like a fearless knight. Fan Oka quickly avoided his thrusts. His body was incredibly flexible. Didn't you say you want to give it a try? Why are you like a mouse? The skull leader tried to anger Fan Oka. His teleportation fruit ability is really elusive, and he doesn't know where you will be teleported to next moment. Go and guard each foothold, the leader ordered coldly. Then, these skeleton soldiers were like machines, squatting in the corners of each room. It's really difficult for me, Fan Oka said helplessly. He fired a bullet in a random direction. What was different from the past was that the speed of this bullet was a little slower. If you use the power of seeing and hearing, you can still feel it. Teleport. The next moment, he was standing at the place where the bullet was fired. Then like a suction cup, the feet are stuck there tightly. Raglan felt a little worried in his heart, secretly wondering whether he should take a trip into this muddy water. A crew member had such strength, he didn't know where he was distracted, and the rest of the rooms set up were restrained. But the next moment, he no longer had such thoughts. Blackbeard was about to break through his shackles. He set up a unique dark room for Blackbeard, which can have the ability to see and hear colors that damage his sight. I began to panic, and cold sweat began to break out on my face. Sizzle. Blackbeard's dark water is like Swain's seawater, very restrained to those with abilities. He didn't have time to think, and all the rooms were a little unstable. Raglan looked a little serious and said, Snowy Land. Chapter 175. Escape Advertisement, Snowland, Raglan shouted. His hands showed a snow-white color, as if they were carved by frost. He was the real master of this huge space. It was still extremely dark on Blackbeard's side, and he couldn't help but hum. What's going on? He clearly felt that he could break this damn shackles, and the black energy in his body gradually became more intense with his anger. It was like dark clouds about to rain in the sky, surrounding him at the moment. Silk. The degree of corrosion began to deepen, and suddenly a ray of light shone in, and Blackbeard was immediately overjoyed. But before I could be happy, the next moment a pair of big frost-white hands came in, silently. He has a cautious personality and has always been extremely sensitive to unknown dangers. He quickly rolled over after noticing something was wrong behind him. Tap tap tap, where he originally stood, a huge hand appeared. A lot of gravel suddenly rose up from the ground, and then floated in the air, and the sharpest tips turned around and pointed at Blackbeard. Whoosh whoosh. Hundreds of piercing sounds were like a symphony, constantly shooting towards Blackbeard. Seeing danger approaching, the opponent moved very quickly and swatted down hard. Dark acupoint, Blackbeard said loudly. The already dark space and the dark acupoints made it difficult to see clearly. Blackbeard relies on his powerful sense of sight and does not need eyesight at all. The flying stones are more terrifying than bullets. The densely packed rocks form a wall, the kind that can crush people into pulp. The vortex formed by the dark cave is extremely powerful and has extraordinary gravity. The gravel on the wall turns into powder as soon as it touches it. The airflow convection upwards, and the powder is blown up and spreads around. Blackbeard couldn't help laughing proudly, but he stopped abruptly just in the middle of his laughter. A pair of huge white hands were holding him tightly, squeezing his arms and stomach together. Ah! He started screaming. Raglan did not take it lightly, and increased the intensity of his hand a little more. Transfer. Boom. The two hands collided. Raglan was shocked. How could he escape? At this time, a cold voice answered his doubts. Are you curious? After all, he is my captain. I can't just let you pinch him to death like this. Raglan passively released the restraints and trapped the powerful black group for nearly a stick of incense. He had no extra energy to proceed at the moment. As soon as the room's fruit power was recovered, everyone came to the place again. He, it seems he can't hold it anymore, Blackbeard said with a strange smile. There was a joking look in Raglan's eyes, as the prey could not escape the shrewd and powerful hunter. Advertisement. You are quite powerful among the Shichibukai. At least it is not worth the amount of your bounty, Van Oka commented. Raglan breathed heavily and exclaimed. Really? Then you are complimenting me. You can count, but this is the last time you'll hear it. Van Oka raised his gun and was about to shoot. When he saw Raglan's appearance, he knew that his body must be overloaded. After all, the pirate group that trapped the strength of the 5 emperors was still a bit difficult to resist. Go to hell. The bullet escaped, and Raglan struggled to his death. Shishwei. Opposite room. He transformed his body into a room, and moved his heart in the opposite direction to change its position. A sudden sneer. The bullet passed through his body, and the huge impact shattered his ribs into powder. The broken body was also carried 100 meters away, and the scarlet blood dyed a straight red line on the ground. Seeing that Raglan was dead, Blackbeard said in a hurry. Wrap him in a cloak made of sea stone. We can't let the devil fruit escape. He wanted the power of this fruit at this time, definitely not to eat it himself, but to give it to his future crew members. After the devil fruit's host dies, the devil's soul will be passed on to the next fruit, continuing the legacy. After hearing the captain's order, Badgers jumped over with a big stride, holding a banana in his hand. They covered Raglan's head with a black cloth. Blackbeard let out a strange cry, and activated the dark fruit ability, with 2 vortexes hovering in his hands, which can capture people's hearts and souls. Raglan under the black cloak had already secretly moved away through space, leaving behind the scarecrow he created. This move of Civet Cat to Prince is already his limit. Blackbeard and others did not notice any difference, and even thought that he under the black cloth was the dead Raglan. Whirring. The cloak made a hunting noise triggered by the black mist. After a moment, Blackbeard was surprised. No, this is not Raglan. Would it be ********D? He fooled us all. His face, which was already dark, was actually flushing at this moment, and his chest was rising and falling. Ah, isn't this him? Badger saw that the captain had stopped moving. Curious, he lifted up the black cloth and took a look. Really, the Raglan under the black cloth has turned into a pile of straw. When did he escape? This question is raised in everyone's mind. At this moment, Shiryu suddenly held the famous thunderstorm sword in his hand and pulled it out, slashing towards the end of an uninhabited forest. The sword's power was so sharp that the trees blocking it were almost broken at a touch, and the area was directly razed to the ground. Everyone was shocked by his action and looked at him in confusion. Somebody is coming.